We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm FTFE, welcome back to the channel that does to stupidity what Anakin Skywalker did to the Jedi Daycare Center.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
Thank you for joining me once again for another talk about the shape of our Earth. I hope everyone's having a good week and you've got a few days of FTFE content to look forward to, as I have a debate today. I release my new episode of Flerfs are Idiots tomorrow, then I got another debate the day after, then another debate the day after, because, you know, who needs sleep. Today we are going to be speaking to someone I found on Facebook. His name is Greg, who believes God created Earth like a terrarium. Greg, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Doing great, thank you. Appreciate the invite.
No, I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to me. Greg and I have been talking back and forwards a little bit over Messenger, and he seems like a decent person. And I'll remind Greg and everyone else of the general rule that we have on the channel, and that is that you decide how it goes, Greg. You're decent to me, I'll be decent to you. Unfortunately, that tends to end in a dumpster fire because for some reason flat earthers genuinely don't know how to have conversations, but you seem like a decent person from our interactions so far, so maybe this can be a decent conversation. I'm going to pass the mic over to you, let you have a few minutes to introduce yourself and state your position on the shape of the Earth. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Over to you, bud.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Craig. And I just want to say, you know, this is not like a personal thing to me. I know people get really heated, but it's just a discussion. You know, if you convince me of your model, then I'll walk away believing it. But if I convince you otherwise, we tend to have our biases. I'm going to start with this. I'm an experienced professional. So although I have seen from this demographic, most of you would like to think that all flat earthers are stupid. You know, I've served in Navy submarine service. I was a police detective. I worked with some of the best agencies, state and federal, in the country, the United States. So that was my first 15-year career. I know how to look at evidence. I know how to prosecute crime. I know how to weigh and balance evidence. And I've always prided myself in being pretty objective with that. So I've also helped manage over $100 million as a financial planner. That's what I do now after retiring from law enforcement. And I'm not purporting to be an expert. I don't have any inside knowledge. I haven't seen the Earth from outer space or anywhere else. So I'm not an expert either. I'm not here representing myself as an expert or as a dummy. I'm kind of just a regular guy. And I'm looking at high level common sense observations. I'm not going to be able to get into the weeds as far as Craig will on science and stuff, partly because I don't believe them. So I don't bother studying Isaac Newton and Einstein and stuff like that too much anymore. I believe science is 100% for sale. David Lewis wrote a book called Science for Sale, where it is well documented. Hold on a minute, let me pull this up. It's well documented how the US government uses powerful corporations and leading universities to support government policies, silence top scientists, jeopardize our health, and protect corporate profits. After school and heavy indoctrination, scientists are only allowed to come up with approved and accepted results that fit into mainstream media narratives. Pfizer and Moderna are quintessential current examples. I do not trust government. I can't believe anyone would. I believe it's plain to see that governments have lied to their people throughout history, and it's no different with the globe, outer space, science fiction, which was designed to create doubts about God in the minds of men. Much like evolution and climate change, heliocentrism is heavy on agenda and light on the facts. I'm a Christian, but I wasn't taught this. I believed in the globe model for the first 37 years of my life. Like you all, when I first heard this, I thought it was crazy. My immediate response was to reject it, but looking into it, I became aware of many things I'm going to share here that I ask you to look at objectively. If you're not here to listen to both sides with an open mind, you're indeed wasting your own time. Rather than the belief that you came from primordial sludge, I'm here to challenge that notion and offer you real hope. You have been created with a purpose. You are very special to the Father, the creator of all things. And here's more, for whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Yes, Jesus Yeshua is my Savior, and he was the propitiation for our sins so that we might live. His sacrificial death was to bring us everlasting life. As we come to the end of an age, our time is short, so I implore you to take a look at Yeshua and give him a chance in your life. May he reveal himself to you. Now, the model of the earth that I believe, overall, think terrarium. If you had a pet lizard, you wouldn't throw a bunch of balls in the air and then try to get the lizard to float on them, okay? You'd build him a terrarium because it makes sense. It supports life. A beautiful, wonderful created ecosystem of everything needed for survival and thriving. Our earth is a huge, beautiful gift to us that our creator designed. Even the leaves on the trees are for the healing of the nation, the Bible says. I do believe in the azimuthal equidistant map, that it's pretty accurate. I know Globers are screaming and believe the opposite, but I haven't seen that. I've not been convinced of it. I've just heard people say it and not been able to prove it. It seems very accurate. And the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Clock app that DITRH created shows this very clearly. All the seasons, times, flights, circumnavigations work very well in this model, and the eclipses work much more accurately on this model as well. And then Craig said I could plug my business. I want to throw this out there real quick, just for other flat earthers and others that want to, are curious what I do. Grab a pen and paper. If you're someone who thinks like me and who knows that right now there's a real conspiracy for financial reset, a global conspiracy, you know that we're up against volatile financial times that are very different than in the past. This calls for a special kind of preparation in your financial and investment planning. I want to work with like-minded people like you and help you prepare. I'm offering a free report called the Investment Insights for 2022. If you simply email me, if you're interested, grab that pen. My email is very simple. It's gngtnt@gmail.com. That's George November George, Tom November Tom @gmail.com. And that's my open. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Greg. Chat was saying that my mic was a bit loud. Let me know if it sounds any better now, chat. Greg, do you hear me okay? Is my mic okay for you?
I do. I hear you.
Right.
Loud and clear.
Okay, well, chat, just let me know if that's coming through okay for you guys. The levels look a bit better over here. So,
okay.
So you were in the Navy, Greg, you said?
Yes.
As a submariner?
Yes.
Me too. I was in the Royal
Oh.
Navy as a nuclear engineer on board submarines for quite a while.
Wow.
Um,
For what country now? For the
Royal
UK?
Navy, so the UK.
Awesome. Well, good to meet another submariner.
All right. Now, I don't know what it's like on board the American subs for you guys, but in the Royal Navy, if you're a submariner, you have to be able to do everything on board the submarine. Like, not be an expert in everything, but you have to understand to be able to operate every system and do everything that needs to be done in an emergency. And one of those particular things was route planning. Now, obviously, the submarines had a nuclear reactor, but you have backup engines. You know, you've got your diesel engines for if your reactor fails, and you know that's your emergency for generating your air, propulsion, and everything you need to get back to where you need to go. And one of my first trips out, one of the extra jobs that I was given, and I did it for over 8 months, was to calculate the specific amount of fuel that would be required, the amount of diesel that would be needed for the journey we were doing if we had to jump into using our diesel engines in an emergency. And as you would know, you having too much, making you weigh too much, that can be a problem. Not having enough in an emergency can be a problem. So you've got to be pretty specific with the measurements that you're given and the calculations that you have to do. And to calculate the fuel that we would need in an emergency, I had to be able to calculate how much fuel would be consumed over time, per nautical mile. And to be able to know that, I had to know how far we were going, what speeds we would generally be having, and do the calculations to figure out these things. So if we're traveling from point A to point B, the reactor pops out, we've got to go onto the diesel emergency. Do we have enough diesel to get from point A to point B? It was my job to make sure that we did. And all the calculations that I ever did to make sure the fuel was correct for the journeys, I did specifically based on a globe, using, for instance, the Haversine formula, which is something that pilots use for route planning, which is something that would only work in three-dimensional geometry. And as a submariner yourself, I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Well, my thoughts personally are that it's not, for purposes of that, well, first of all, let me say this, Greg. It's an honor to speak with another submariner again. When I was in the Navy, I spent hours debating other submariners. I mean, it was like, they say don't talk about religion, don't talk about science, don't talk about any politics. All we would do is talk about that stuff. And it wasn't funny until someone got mad. But we got so callous that we could have these deep conversations without getting upset, which was pretty cool. And that's how I started debating, and that kind of makes sense why you have this program. Down in the bottom of the sea, you have a lot of time to talk about anything under the sun. So, but yeah, I would just say to you, I am only speaking at a high level. I was not in navigation, and I wasn't in nuclear engineering. My job was to feed you guys. Okay. Like you said, you had to be qualified submarine warfare. So we had to be qualified for everything on the sub. I had to understand all the systems. I had to be able to have that basic knowledge. But I can't really speak to that other than to say that is one of those things like DITRH would say, works on a ball, works on a flat earth.
But see, now that's the thing. Models. For me, knowing the distances are accurate on a ball, on the globe, you specifically mentioned the azimuthal equidistant projection map. They don't match. The distances that I would calculate on the globe Earth, they simply wouldn't have matched the distances for the azimuthal equidistant map. If I was to go between, say, Australia and South Africa on the azimuthal equidistant projection map, that's going to be nearly 2.5 times the distance that it would be on the globe. Because the further you get out, the more distances are distorted east to west. So
I know what you're talking about. I do understand what you're talking about. I can't speak to it. I would just have to take your word for it.
So that's a confliction, because I know for a fact what distances are. tested these distances for a long time. I had to do it. It was my job. And wherever we are in the world, the calculations that I had turned out to be correct. You know, people had to check what I was doing because I was still training at certain times. And, you know, it was always right. And it was always based on a globe. And the same principle isn't just for me as a submariner figuring out emergency fuel usage. A pilot would have to be able to calculate the fuel needed to get from point A to point B. There is flights that go all the way from Australia to South America. You know, those flights exist non-stop, okay? Now, if you were to put that flight on the azimuthal equidistant projection map, the plane that does that specific journey would not be able to carry enough fuel for the journey that it does based on the distances on the AE map. It's like nearly 3 times the distance. And the maximum rated fuel capacity for the plane that does that would not be able to carry the correct amount of fuel. Yet the journey is done all the time, and pilots calculate the fuel needed based on a globe.
Okay, well, so I have looked into that. And, you know, whereas I have not done that myself, I have looked into it. And I think Jaron did a lot on this. He called the airlines. Yeah, from Jaronism. He had called the airlines a lot and tried to find those flights, and it was almost impossible to actually board one of those flights. First of all, second of all, when you look at where they're landing, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. They're actually not covering as much ground, you know, as what you're talking about.
I mean, the flight is QF14 from Buenos Aires to Darwin over Antarctica. And it's a flight that someone that we actually know went and booked and got on that flight and did it and recorded the entire thing. So it has been done. I mean, like, I don't want to... You keep bringing up Dearth and Jaronism, and I have a bit of a problem with those two guys specifically because they spend a lot of time slagging me off, like saying really horrible things about me, calling me homosexual, calling me stupid and fat and stuff, you know. But they both refuse completely to actually speak to me. Jaronism did about 3 videos on me the other week. Dearth talks about me all the time on his baby conspiracy boomer show with Alex Stein, Conspiracy Castle, and Jaronism. They spend a lot of time being really horrible to me. But the thing is, I've proved that they are all liars with the things that they say. And you seem like a nice guy, and I don't want you to be pulled into the pit of snakes that Jaronism and Dearth belong to. Because here's something, right, which you may find hard to believe, but none of them are flat earthers. Not one of those guys believes the earth is flat. Not at all. Why would you say that? They are snake oil salesmen that are trying to make money off of, unfortunately, people like you. They've said
do you have evidence of that?
Well, Jaronism, the things that he has personally done to prove the Earth is a globe, taking measurements of the curve, measuring the distance to the ISS personally and things like that. He knows that the Earth is a globe because he has demonstrated himself experimentally and then pretended to ignore the results. Dearth was involved in experiments that would measure the curve and the rotation and completely ignored the results. And you can't do the things that these guys have done and still think the Earth is flat. The fact that they won't ever talk to us, just for me, it is a big red flag. But
can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
I want to respond to what you're saying and kind of go back to what the original part of the conversation was about.
Yeah, sorry, I did get a bit off topic there. I just don't want you to be focusing too much of your time on bringing up evidence that those guys have kind of brought forward. But
sure.
Sorry, that was my
bad. And I didn't realize you guys had beef. I don't listen to them enough to hear that part of it. So yeah, I apologize for that. I mean, it is what it is. When it comes to when you get to the southern regions of our Earth, you're talking about those basically it's a lot farther because it's wider down there. Okay, on a flat Earth map.
Yeah.
So there are. I'm not an expert, but there are material experts. There's Mark Sargent has interviewed, and don't get carried away with Mark Sargent, because it's the people he's interviewed that I'm bringing up. On Flat Earth Clues, he's interviewed submarine people, navigators. He's interviewed pilots. There's plenty of pilots that are flat earthers. So this isn't just one or two people in the world that believe this.
No, I understand. There's a lot of you. That's why I'm 600 deep debates in. But I do want to go back specifically to the A map, right? Because the A map, whether or not the Earth is flat, this is not the map of the Earth. And there is one word that can demonstrate that to be fact, and that word is Australia. Australia is not 3 times as wide as it is tall. It's simply not. It's almost, circle, slightly oval, but it is not like that. And people have done long distance trucking with odometers going around the entirety of Australia. The distances are known. Australia does not look like that. Australia is not 3 times the size of Russia. Australia is not bigger than Canada and the continental United States combined. It's simply not. Whether or not the Earth is flat, this is not the correct map.
And that's fine. Another point I want to make, flat earthers don't have $50 million a day in funding like NASA.
That's hardly anything, though.
To put the expectation on flat earthers to have like a wonderful, perfect map is really kind of absurd. I mean, these guys have no funding. They're like regular guys like me that, the best they could do is liquidate their entire 401k, I guess.
So there is many flat earthers that claim to be extremely rich. For instance, there's a guy who literally calls himself Flat Earth Millionaire. And NASA they're nothing to do with maps. We've cartographers have been a thing since, for God knows how long. And we knew the shape of the Earth and the size of the countries and that before NASA was even, a twinkle in the American government's eye. So in respect of making a map, I would say flat earthers have exactly the same abilities and fundings as we do, because they can get a ship and go and sail around the edges and measure the distances just like it was done in the past. And there's a lot of things that flat earthers could do, but they won't. And that always says to me that they don't even want to know the truth, or they're pretending to be flat earthers, like I was saying earlier. Another thing about the AE map that we know for distances, right, is that every 2 years there is a yacht race that goes around Antarctica, and anyone can enter. It's not anything special, but they measure the distances that they go, and the distance that they take to go around Antarctica is between 14,000 and 16,000 nautical miles. Now, if we were to say that this map was correct, or any map indeed that has the ice all around the edge, based on known distances, they would have to travel would be 43,000 miles, nautical miles, instead of the 14 to 16,000 nautical miles. And we know they don't do that. They go all the way around Antarctica, and they only go the maximum of 16,000 nautical miles, which can't be the case if this is a representation of reality.
Well, can you leave that map up so I can talk about it?
Yeah.
So you see what up here where Spain is, I don't think anyone can see my mouse, but basically above Africa there you have Spain, and then you have France, and
you got the Mediterranean and Europe and everything there, yeah.
Yep, that region where you live. So they start the race right there in France, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. They have no checkpoints around Antarctica, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. I think you may be thinking of a different
yacht race to me, because the one that they do, they actually launch from New Zealand, and then they have several checkpoints that they have to go as they go around Antarctica, and all the boats are also GPS tracked. And during the yacht race,
is this the Vendée yacht race, the Vendée World?
I don't know if that's the name of it. Maybe there's a couple.
Maybe it sounds like you're talking about a different one. The one I looked into, though, Craig, I'll tell you, I try to look into these things as honestly as possible, and I thought, oh man, I've got a real problem here. But then when I did look into it further, what they do is they go down around the Horn of Africa. They go down to Antarctica, which we flat earthers believe to be the all the way around the Earth that holds the water and everything in. That's basically our barrier. Okay. They go down to it, and and on our model, as you can see, if they go down around the Horn of Africa, they have to travel with Antarctica and the ice to their left all the way to South America, and then they go back up to France. Now, in all the photographs of that race, they have the ice wall to their left. If they took the route that they were supposed to take, the ice wall would be to the right, because they would go around Antarctica with the ice wall on the right. So
maybe it's just a matter of perspective. And it was actually the Van de Globe I was talking about. Maybe it was 1 year they launched from New Zealand rather than France, but yes. But one thing about the Van de Globe yacht race is that you can actually track the entire thing. Every ship, every yacht that takes part has to have GPS connection to be tracked for emergency, and you can literally track the progress of every single ship and see where they're going. And the distance, it also tracks the distances that they do, and it just simply doesn't match the distances. And anyone can join. A flat earther could go and do this race. There's no restrictions as to who can join it, and it simply doesn't match the distances. It would be at least 43,000 nautical miles around the ice wall, but it's not. It's only about 16,000 nautical miles. And as a submariner, I went to the McMurdo Station in Antarctica, and I certainly didn't see an ice wall going around the entire thing. And one more interesting thing about the A map. Do you know where it came from?
I can't recall. I know it's older than the globe map, but I can't recall.
Well, no, it's certainly not older than the globe map, because we've had globe maps for, probably 1,000 years plus. But the A map was created by a guy called Alexander Gleason. It's otherwise known as the Gleason Standard Map of the World.
Yes, Gleason.
Yeah, and he patented this. He created it as a timepiece. He said it's a scientifically accurate timepiece to map out the seasons and the celestial navigation and things like that, right? But when he wrote the patent, he specifically said in the patent how it is distorted from that of a globe. He straight up in the patent for the map that he created said it is an extortion of the globe, that as you go past the meridian, the longitude lines get further and further apart and distorted east to west more. So the person that created this map said that it was based on the globe.
He said it was based on the globe specifically, or just that the map was distorted?
He said it's distorted from that of a globe. And that's what he meant. He said if you take the globe map, you distort it, and you get this. That was his points. And then he explained how it is distorted from that of a globe.
Okay.
So that's coming from the creator, the person of
there,
the map itself.
That explains Australia then for you there.
Yeah.
I'm not claiming that that's a perfect map. Again, I would go back to, if we had $50 million, you say there's a flat Earth millionaire, but okay,
right.
Well, there's 50
calls himself
millionaires
flat
a
Earth
day
millionaire,
for
yeah.
NASA.
Right, so
that?
just quickly about that 50 million a day. That's not really that much for an agency as big as NASA. What do you think they do with 50 million a day?
Craig, they pay engineers and scientists, and they have all kinds of technology, anything they want. They're the largest helium producer or purchasers in the United States.
Yeah, in the world, actually.
Probably in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
because it's excellent for storing fuel, basically. It's
excellent for
nothing.
lifting fake satellites up into the sky.
Yeah, but
so that they can.
There isn't fake satellites. There's we can literally track satellites where they are. And for instance, there was a satellite that was in geosynchronous orbit for 47 years. There is no balloon technology that could exist at a distance of 20,000 plus miles above the surface of the Earth and stay in that exact position for 47 years. There is satelloons, but they're usually weather monitoring stations and things. Some owned by NASA, some owned by others, but satellites are most definitely real things. And the thing about NASA and the budget is, being a government agency, they have to have accountability. And as an American citizen, you must be able to see where your tax dollars are going. You can literally track every cent of NASA's budget and what they spent it on.
So wait a minute. I'm going to stop you there, and I would like a chance to talk here.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, you think you can trust government agencies in the United States to be transparent? Are you kidding me?
Well, as a federal agency, they have to, as part of their charter, be accountable and transparent. It's whether you believe they are or not is irrelevant. This is something they have to do, and you can literally track every cent of where the money goes.
Okay, well, I think you need to pay a little more attention to what's going on over here in the United States.
I mean, I know it's a shit show, that's for sure.
Our federal agencies have become corrupt political organizations that arrest their political enemies. They do whatever they want. Listen, right now, Pfizer just asked our Supreme Court for 55 years to disclose all the information about those poison vaccines.
Hey, can we please not talk about vaccines? YouTube doesn't YouTube doesn't like that, and it can end up getting the channel removed.
That makes sense. Well, I'm just saying, I mean, if you're talking about the FBI, if you're talking about the CIA that has done, even over in your neck of the woods, has done so much corrupt nonsense. I mean, these government agencies are not transparent at all. They cannot be trusted at all. But let me from here, you had told me that I would get an opportunity to present evidence, and we've been
exactly. I just wanted to kind of go over a couple of things that you said, and I think I covered everything that I wanted to there.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for your intro and everything there. So I'm going to give you some time to present what you would consider some good evidence for the Earth being flat and non-rotating, and then we can go over that. So over to you. I'll give you how long do you need? 5 minutes? 10 minutes?
You want me to just present one point at a time, right?
Yeah, just one point at a time. So if you don't need a lot of time, it's up to you. I mean,
okay.
I'll give you say 10 minutes to cover it completely, but you don't have to use the 10 minutes.
Okay, for the first one, let me see here. I do not need but 3 or 4 minutes here for the first point that I'd like to make. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, the Earth is stationary, as Airy's failure, Michelson and Morley experiment, and the Sagnac experiments all showed us. Now, all these guys were globe earthers. They wanted to show that the Earth was spinning. They were very disappointed when they did these experiments and found out, oh man, the Earth is not rotating. In fact, it's just the ether above that's rotating, which is very consistent with a flat Earth model, not consistent with a globe heliocentric model at all. Einstein only desperately came up with the theory of relativity immediately afterwards to defend his beliefs, okay? A lot of people look to that theory of relativity like, man, that's why we don't feel the spin. Well, he only desperately came up with that after all these experiments. Maybe the Sagnac might have been after that, but the other ones all showed that the Earth was not spinning. There is no measurable Coriolis effect with birds, insects, airplanes, blimps, bullets, arrows, rocks, or anything. Look, the Coriolis effect tells us that when an object is airborne, the Earth is moving underneath it. So you got a bullet, and the Earth is going to be moving underneath it. Federal firearms instructors have been interviewed, and they've said, we have nothing in the training manual. That's just myth that you hear on the movies about the Coriolis effect. They put a blimp up in France in the 1917. They put a blimp up in France, and they expected it to be halfway around the world in 12 hours by afternoon. It was still sitting right there above the Earth, and they're going, where's that Coriolis effect? Aircraft flying, this is a big one. And I will say this, guys. This is the one where I thought the lady that told me about flat Earth was nuts. When I saw this one, a huge light bulb went off, okay? Aircraft flying towards the west should go faster as a result of Coriolis effect, the Earth spinning eastward. This should vary significant. This should be very significant. Very significant. Okay? But it's the opposite. The jet stream causes aircraft to go faster when they're headed to the east. This is the opposite of what it should be. Now, without the jet stream, there's virtually no difference. You could fly from Seattle to New York or New York to Seattle. If there wasn't a jet stream, there'd be no difference. If the Earth is spinning eastward, I'm like, why have I never thought of that? That, you cannot explain that with the theory of relativity. You cannot explain away what we see with our eyes that is very obvious. If you're saying the Earth is spinning, then it should be twice as fast at least one way. And the other way, you shouldn't even be able to go, because in our northern hemisphere, this Earth is spinning 750 miles an hour. Those airplanes only go 500 miles an hour. Sorry, it does not work, okay? So I'm not done yet. For those of you trying to make the Bible work with atheist secular science, I'm sorry, but the Bible says over 200 times that the Earth does not spin. It does not move. It's immovable. It's stationary. It's set on solid pillars, and it does not move. First Chronicles 16:30 is one that you can look up that's very clear about that. But I understand there's over 200 of those. Okay. My big thing that really convinced me, Craig, I've got some other things listed here, but the real big thing for me is that the Earth simply is not spinning. That's my evidence. What do you say about
Awesome.
that?
Right. Well, luckily, rotation's one of my favorite subjects. Right. So let's start with the Muggs and Morley experiment. What do you think the Muggs and Morley experiment was?
Well, they were not trying necessarily to prove what it proved. I'm not that familiar with the details.
Okay,
like
I am.
said,
I studied it extensively.
Okay.
I even studied it during my physics degree. So the Muggs and Morley experiment was set up specifically to try and determine if the aether was a thing. Muggs and Morley, they both knew that the Earth was rotating and orbiting the Sun in space. And in fact, the experiment depended on this knowledge. What they were trying to say was, if the aether existed, this medium in the universe which light would need to propagate, that they thought at the time, then as Earth orbits the Sun, going through the aether, it would create a drag. The same way as if you were in a car and you stick your hand out the window, you feel the drag, okay? Mm-hmm. That was what they were looking for. They were looking for the drag caused by Earth going through the aether. And they did the experiment at 2 different times during the year, so that they were at different points in Earth's orbit. And what they expected to find was that the speed of light, when they had their instrumentation facing one way, would be slightly different to when it was facing the other way, because the drag on the aether would change how fast the light was traveling. What they found was that there was no discernible difference beyond the margin of error expected in their apparatus. The conclusion of the Muggs and Morley experiment was simply that there was no aether. What they specifically said was, there is 2 options that the results give us. One of the options would be that the Earth was stationary and non-rotating. However, all other evidence shows that this could not be the case. The evidence that we have gathered shows that there is no aether, as there is no drag created by the Earth going around the Sun. This was confirmed in much more detail a few years later with the Muggs and Gale experiments, which were very similar, but much more accurate. Airy's failure was also...
I'd like to look into that. What?
Yeah.
Muthson?
Yeah. Airy's failure, again, similar, was not set up to detect Earth's rotation. Airy's failure was to see if there was aether. And that's why it's called Airy's failure, because it failed to detect aether. Airy said that if you submerge the telescope in water, the light traveling through the aether would then have a different velocity relative to the light coming out of the water that the telescope would see. But his results disagreed with his hypothesis, and that's why it got the name Airy's failure, and again was nothing to do with the Earth's rotation. The Sagnac experiments were actually excellent evidence that the Earth is rotating, and is what is used in, well, frankly, every fiber optic gyroscope in the world to also measure that the Earth is rotating. I'm sure you've heard of Bob Nadell, yes?
No.
Right, okay, quick video for you to watch.
Yeah.
Evidence video. Bob. Oh, why is there no audio, Bob?
Hour, it has to turn 15
Let's start that
degrees.
again.
And if the Earth
So,
is spinning,
right, bit of context. This is famous flat earther
recognize
Bob
the
Bob
voice.
Nadell.
I recognize the voice.
So I'm just
Yep.
going to play this, and then I can explain the technology a little bit more if we need to.
if the Earth is spinning at one rotation every 24 hours, that means that every hour it has to turn 15 degrees. And if the gyroscope is mounted anywhere on Earth, it's going to drift. In today's 21st century navigation systems, they're using what's called a ring laser gyroscope. It is extremely precise. If we could simply get one of these ring laser gyroscopes, we would be able to prove once and for all that there is no rotation to the Earth. One of the people in the community actually purchased one for $20,000. But what we found is when we turned on that gyroscope, we found that we were picking up a drift,
What kind of drift, Bob?
a 15 degree per hour drift.
Thank you very much, Bob. That's very, very interesting. So what he used was called a interferometric fiber optic gyroscope, which uses the Sagnac effect to determine if it's under acceleration or not. And there's a brief demonstration that I like to show that explains the Sagnac effect. So let me bring this up. So the Sagnac effect works like this. This is the inside of a two-dimensional version of the gyroscope that Bob was using. This blue box will fire a coherent light source, a laser or something. This diagonal bit here is a mirror which splits the light into two paths, one path here and one path here. Now, if the device is on something that is stationary, what that means is that both the paths of light are going to be exactly the same, 100% the same. And as we know that in a vacuum, light travels the same speed. When it goes back, the light will recombine and you will just see it as a normal waveform. However, if the instrument itself is moving or is on something that is moving, what that will do is physically shorten the distance one of the paths of light has to travel, because in effect the path is moving underneath the light as it's traveling. And that means that as the light recombines at the other side, it won't be in sync. It will be out of sync, and you will measure that as an interference pattern, which you can, interpret as the rotational velocity of something. And this is what Sagnac did. This is, a kind of a bit more advanced version of what Sagnac did. And Sagnac came up with the determination that based on his experiments, the Earth was rotating because of this effect, and is the same thing that Bob used in the experiment that I just showed you. So all three, the MMX, Aries failure, and Sagnac, don't do what flat earthers claim that they do. The MMX and Aries failure were zero to do with the Earth's rotation, and both simply disproved the aether. And Sagnac actually demonstrated that the Earth rotates very, very easily.
Can I clarify? Can I get some clarification?
Absolutely. 100%.
So you're saying that Aries failure and Michelson-Morley did conclude that the Earth was not rotating, but Sagnac concluded that the Earth was rotating?
No. MMX and Aries failure concluded that there was no aether. They didn't come to the conclusion of anything to do with Earth's rotation, because neither of their experiments were to do with that. MMX and Aries failure, the conclusion of both those experiments were that the aether doesn't exist. And that's why then it was actually quite confusing, because it didn't make sense with a lot of the current understanding of physics. And it wasn't until Einstein and his cohorts came up with the theory of relativity to explain the experiments, because it gave a lot of confusion. We didn't understand how we could get that based on what we understood about how light moved and stuff. So Einstein then was able to give us an understanding of what those experiments results were.
Got it. Yeah, and Craig, I need to look into that a little farther. I think I have heard a little bit of your perspective on that before, and so I'll look into that a little deeper. But let me just ask you, and I'd like to hear your response to why. I mean, there was a guy named Brown that would shoot a cannon straight up into the atmosphere, and it should be landing miles away from the cannon, but sometimes it would land right in the canyon. It always landed right next to the cannon. Why don't we observe any Coriolis effect ever?
That's not Coriolis. And I don't want to sound rude here, but I don't think you know what the Coriolis effect is.
Well, Craig,
Coriolis doesn't...
Listen, wait, let me jump in. I know you're talking a lot, so let Greg jump in once in a while here.
Yeah.
I got a friend that's a flat earther in Utah. He's probably listening to this now. Or, I'm sorry, he's a round earther. First name Rob. He's a sniper, and he tells me that he shoots past 1,000 yards all the time, and he always notices the Coriolis effect. Otherwise, he would miss the target.
Yeah, so that's because he's firing along the Earth. The Coriolis force applies to a freely moving object. That doesn't mean something going straight up and down. That doesn't mean a drone hovering above the Earth. The Coriolis force applies purely to a freely moving object in a rotating reference frame. So a cannonball firing straight up and down wouldn't be expected to experience any Coriolis, because Coriolis isn't...
Is the Earth still moving under it?
Yeah, but no, in that case it wouldn't be. And let's be clear: the Coriolis isn't the Earth moving underneath things. That's not what the Coriolis is. The cannonball firing straight up will be under the influence of conservation of momentum. So as that cannonball is fired straight up, the Earth is rotating, and so is the cannonball. So as that cannonball is fired, it maintains that momentum of the Earth rotating and would expect to fall in roughly the same position, because that's what physics says. Now, if you were to take that cannon, put it at the equator, and fire it north, right? You would expect, in that case, the cannonball, from your point of view, to drift to the right. It would actually drift ahead of the Earth's rotation, because, again, of conservation of momentum. If at the equator, you've got a tangential velocity of 1,000 miles an hour, the further you go north, that tangential velocity decreases, but the cannonball maintains its momentum and drifts ahead of the Earth's rotation. That's what the Coriolis is. So birds do experience it, planes do experience it, but they've got wings and engines that are a lot stronger than the Coriolis force that is applied. So you have to take into account all the forces that are happening. We know Coriolis happens. Sorry, go on.
Isn't the Earth spinning at 1,000 miles per hour? Isn't that what the Earth is spinning at underneath anything that goes into the air?
No, that's simply not how it works. Anything that goes into the air has the rotation of the Earth's momentum with it. It doesn't just, all of a sudden things move underneath
Einstein. That's the theory of relativity.
No, that's just conservation of momentum. That's all that is. It's conservation. It's conservation of momentum. It's part of Newton's laws, really. It's already traveling at that speed with the Earth. So Newton or Einstein, these are both people that sold their souls for worldly prestige. Yeah, okay. I disagree with that. They're just physicists. But we're talking specifically about what the Coriolis is. Bought and paid for.
If they hadn't gone along with the mainstream narrative at the time to get the prestige they wanted, their careers would have been over.
Einstein went totally against the mainstream narrative. Einstein was laughed out of many, many offices. Newton was called insane by his peers.
People like me, yeah, I laugh at him. But, he had a lot of prestige. He's well known as one of the best scientists in the world. And
also as a completely crazy person that spent the later years of his life counting pennies. But conservation of momentum, regardless of Einstein or Newton, conservation of momentum is a physical law. It's like if you're on a train and the train's moving 200 miles an hour, you jump up and down inside the train, you're leaving the train surface, but you're still moving with the train. It's the same on Earth. You have that momentum, and the atmosphere is also rotating with the Earth because of gravity and friction over billions of years. Wow. So anything that's using the atmosphere to fly, i.e. an aeroplane, doesn't just have the Earth rotating underneath it because it's using the atmosphere. So if the atmosphere is rotating with the Earth to the the east at 15.04 degrees per hour, the airplane has that momentum with it. And to be clear, the Earth isn't spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. That's the tangential velocity at one latitude only, the equator.
Wait a minute. I just heard something I've never heard before from a glober. You're saying the Earth is not spinning at 1,000 miles per hour eastward?
No, you don't spin in miles per hour. That's not a rotational velocity. That's a tangential velocity. The Earth is rotating. The Earth is spinning at 15.04 degrees per hour, or 0.000694 RPM. Only at the equator does that mean that the surface has a tangential velocity of 1,000 miles an hour. At the poles, the tangential velocity is 0. And
I understand that, Craig.
Yeah.
I understand that at the equator it's 1,000 and at the poles it's 0, but in between that, like where I live, it's 700 miles per hour.
Yeah, but that's not how fast you spin. That's the ground's tangential velocity, which is a straight line path. Yeah, the entire planet is. Yeah, that means a straight line path.
That means real. Yeah, that tangible. Like real.
No, tangential, not tangible. They're different things. Tangential just means a straight line path, basically, compared to a curve. So the surface of the Earth is traveling in a straight line at where you are at 700 miles an hour. But the entire Earth is rotating at 0.000694 RPM, which is roughly half the speed of an hour hand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that was excellent. Can we move on to my number 2 here?
Yeah, I just wanted, there's a couple of other things you brought up.
Okay.
There is many military manuals that talk about to correct for the Coriolis, including long-distance sniping, artillery, and other things. I can provide those to you separately if you need. I've got them all saved in a folder. I don't like it when flat earthers say there's no military manuals or anything that say, but they literally do explain how to calculate for the differences due to Coriolis.
Well, speaking of that, Craig, I'd like to mention something.
Yeah, go on.
Speaking of that, they did a FOIA request. This is where a private citizen forces the government to disclose things the government does not want to disclose, and that's why they haven't disclosed it. And very reluctantly, NASA disclosed that, all their training manuals and their operating procedures, they all say, we are doing this based on a stationary, flat, non-rotating Earth.
So that's a slightly separate topic, and that's to do with modeling, and we can go over exactly what they say. That's not really to do with this specifically, with the government, with the military manuals all around the world. Any military manual in the world for artillery will tell you about correcting for Coriolis. I do want to get to those NASA documents because that's always a good one. Then you said that we don't feel the spin, but you think we should. Is that right?
No, I didn't say that. I think we should
I may have misheard
it. I think we should be able to observe it.
I mean, we definitely can observe it.
I joke with my archery buddies because arrows fly slowly. It's like you got to shoot 6 feet to the left of the target if you want your arrow to hit the target because the Earth is spinning. I mean, this should be observable with arrows, baseballs,
but again, the arrow is
birds, blimps, airplanes, and it's not. It's not observable at all.
But the Earth doesn't spin underneath something as soon as the Earth doesn't spin underneath the arrow as soon as you fire it. The Earth and arrow's path are independent, and it will be then under the forces of Coriolis due to conservation of momentum. It's not as soon as you leave the surface of something, you don't then stop spinning with it. The arrow still has the momentum of the Earth rotating to the east as you fire it. So there's no reason why the Earth would then move underneath it. What will happen is it will maintain its momentum if it traveled far enough and drift based on the forces imparted. Again, I think it's a very...
I would like to say something about that, Craig. Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
The Coriolis effect was originally defined as the Earth spins under the object as it's moving, and that's
I disagree.
Well,
I mean, I as with my physics degree...
What happens is, let me finish.
Yeah.
We catch on to this stuff and we go, hey, that's not observable. And then the Globers come up with a new science, which is because they're not observing what's obvious to everybody and what we can see with our own eyes, we have to explain this away with something like the conservation or the relativity theory of relativity. But the fact of the matter is, if what you're saying was true, when smoke, when you saw smoke going up into the atmosphere, the smoke would have to be affected by this Coriolis effect, this magic thing that we never see.
You're misunderstanding what Coriolis is. The smoke is already rotating with the Earth, and it doesn't really travel in a straight line path. It just hovers above the rotating Earth that it's already rotating with. Coriolis is not and has never, ever, 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 ever been the Earth rotating underneath something. Never. That's never what it has been defined as. Ever, ever, ever. It has always been defined as a deflection off a straight line path due to forces imparted by the rotating of the Earth. It has never, ever, ever been the Earth rotating underneath things. And
okay,
I would very much like a citation from you if that is what you are claiming.
Is your point that we cannot observe the Coriolis effect at all? Is that your...
No, we absolutely can observe the Coriolis, as I explained to you.
How?
Because things will drift off of a straight line path. If you fire a projectile from the north, from the equator going north, that projectile will drift ahead of the Earth's rotation due to the Coriolis force.
Why will it impact that? But
that's what the Coriolis says.
Why will it impact that, but it won't impact a blimp?
Because a blimp's just hovering; it's not traveling in a straight line path.
Okay, well, that's beyond my comprehension. I really...
Right, okay,
I'm a
think of it like
guy,
this.
Craig.
Okay,
and you're obviously you're much more complex than me.
Let me try and explain it a bit more simply in two dimensions. Okay, imagine a spinning record disc. Okay, and you're looking at it from above, and on the outside of that disc, even though the whole thing's spinning at the same speed, the outside of the disc is traveling faster. Right? You understand that?
I do.
Right. So, if you were a very little person on the outside of that disc, and you wanted to throw a ball towards the center, because when you threw that ball and you were standing on the outside, you were traveling faster than the center was. As you threw that ball towards the center, it would maintain your momentum and rotate faster than the disc itself. That is what Coriolis is. That is what Coriolis is. If there was something just hovering above the disc and moving with it as our atmosphere is, it's not going to drift. That's not what we'd expect to see, because it's not simply things moving underneath it. And you have to, on Earth, take into account the fact that the atmosphere also rotates with the Earth. So nothing about Coriolis says that it's the Earth rotating underneath. Yeah, the Earth rotates independently, but Coriolis...
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, but Coriolis is about something maintaining its momentum within a reference frame. It's as simple as that. Going north to south...
You're speaking more of relativity. The theory of relativity...
No, again, it's not relativity. It's conservation of momentum. They're not the same thing.
That's what you want to call it in this debate. That's fine.
No. They're very different things. General relativity is absolutely nothing to do with conservation of momentum. They're very, very different things.
I'll take your word for that. Okay,
so
I think
north to south, it's to do with tangential velocities being different. East to west, it's to do with, as you fire the bullet, the Earth will be kind of catching up to it, and it forces it to the sky or towards the floor, which then imparts the clockwise or anti-clockwise rotation. But never has Coriolis been the Earth rotating underneath something. Again, that's something flat earthers say because they don't understand what Coriolis is. This is a very good page which I will send to you for you to read, which explains Coriolis in, I think, a very easy to understand way. And there was one other thing that you brought up in your first bit of evidence, and that was that the Bible says the Earth is flat.
No, I did not say that.
Stationary. You said the Bible says the Earth is stationary.
Yeah.
Well, it says it says immovable, and yeah, you're right. The ground underneath your feet is immovable, but the entire thing is moving. But interestingly, the Bible specifically says that the Earth is a globe and in space.
Nope.
Yeah, 100%. I can get the passages right now for you if you like.
It's yeah, the Bible says that the Lord hung the earth on nothing. That doesn't mean it's in space. It also says
Well, if he
that,
hung it on nothing, then how can it be on pillars?
Well, ask the Lord that. The other one was, the Bible says the circle of the earth. In the book of Job, it describes the earth as a circle.
It says globe, actually.
No, you're looking at a translation that's convenient for you. It's,
well, I'm looking at a translation
round.
that's older than the King James Bible, for instance.
The best translation, and I don't know what that verse says in this one, but it's the NASB, the New American Standard Version. That's the best one for...
Why is that the best one?
Well, I had a really old scholar tell me that that's the best one if you want the most realistic Hebrew translation, is the NASB, and I don't know what it says.
The Darry Rhymes Bible is known as the closest to the Hebrew translation, and it says that it is he that sitteth upon the globe of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as locusts. He that stretcheth out the heavens as nothing, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in.
Okay. Yeah, but known by who? That I've never heard of that translation.
But again, that's known as the one that's closest to the Hebrew translation. To the original Hebrew.
I was told it was the NASB. Can we look at what the NASB says, just for?
I mean, I don't know that Bible. I'm just saying that these are specific Bible quotes that say globe, and then there's ones here that specifically.
Hey, Craig, I'll be happy to look
James
it up.
Bible.
It's Job 26:7.
Hold on. This is Isaiah 40:22 and Job 26:7. I always find it interesting that flat earthers will never talk about the translations that disagree with them, and then I just go back to maybe we shouldn't talk about the Bible when we're talking about the shape of the earth. I talk about these
all the time, Craig. I like these passages, but let me copy this. Isaiah 40:22.
Mm-hmm. If you want to see these, they are on mctune.net/Bible-globe.
Okay, I got it. So the NASB says, it is he who sits upon the circle, above the circle of the earth. A circle can be a pizza. I mean, its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain. So the heavens, you think of them as open sky, but it says he stretches out the heavens like a curtain. So there's something material there, and spreads them out like a tent to live in. A tent also has a dome over it. So this whole passage describes a much more biblical model of the earth. You went, and Craig, no offense, but I take the word of God seriously. You went and cherry picked a version that says what you wanted to say.
Wait, isn't that exactly what you guys do, though?
That's what you did. I didn't do that.
Yeah, but isn't that what you guys do? You cherry pick the versions that say what you want to say. What makes the versions that you have
Craig,
any more valid than these ones?
I just went to a version that I didn't know what it said, that a guy that's 80 years old, that's been a pastor for 55 years, he's a Hebrew scholar, told me that was the most Hebrew, the closest to a Hebrew true translation of Scripture. I didn't know what it said before I went to it. So
Hebrew speakers disagree. Hebrew speakers say the Darry Rhymes Bible is the one that's closest to the original Hebrew. But my point here is that we've no way of knowing which translation is true. I mean, personally, I don't believe in God, so it's irrelevant to me. But we don't know which translation is 100% correct. So maybe we shouldn't use the Bible as evidence of anything to do with the shape of the earth, because there is so many versions of it, and the Bible is so open to interpretation. I just think it's a very silly thing to do, to try and use it as evidence for the shape of the earth when you can get so many conflicting reports. I will 100% admit that those passages that I showed you are cherry-picked. Yes, of course they are. But that's no different to when flat earthers cherry-pick bits that say circle. But here's the thing, no matter how much the flat earthers cherry-pick, they will never, ever, ever find a passage in the Bible that says the earth is flat.
No, it's like with a lot of Christians, like the word Trinity. The Godhead 3 in 1 is never really, I mean, it's explained in Scripture, but the word Trinity isn't used. The rapture is something we all know about as Christians, but the word rapture is not used in Scripture. And you know, flat Earth. Let's be honest. Flat Earth is a derogatory term. It's become a derogatory term.
I've worked
that's
hard
used
to make
to
it one.
describe a stupid model. You know, really, because that's why I say I believe in more of a terrarium model. I don't believe in some pizza disc flying through space with the water spilling over the edges. That's ridiculous. I believe in a very sound, biblical, like terrarium model that actually works and sustains life. So
not this.
No, no, because I don't believe in outer space. So that's
Are you telling me that that's not a real photo?
good one, Craig. That looks like a NASA photo.
Well, actually, this is the Discworld by Terry Pratchett, and is some of the best writing ever done. That's Great Achuin, the sea turtle, with the 4 great elephants that contain the disc of the world. And the sun and the moon, the elephants have to lift up their legs to let them orbit around. Right. Anyway, so yeah, that was. I think I responded to everything you brought up. The MMX, Aries failure, Sagnac. Not being rude, but you're ignorant as to what Coriolis actually is, and I will send you that page to read, which will really help there. Military manuals do talk about it, and we can see that the Bible sometimes says the Earth's a globe. Therefore, I don't think we should use that as evidence. Do we have any final thoughts on that first part?
You know, I would just say let the listeners decide. I mean, you can choose to believe what you see with your eyes or not believe what you see with your eyes. Do you want to hear my evidence for the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you're happy to move on, everything that you said the first time we've covered sufficiently, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Right, on to the next one.
Okay, we can. Do I have the ability to share my screen if I need to, Craig?
I will turn that on for you now. Just give me a sec.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen by pressing the green button at the bottom.
Okay, now this is the one that kind of put the light bulb off for most flat earthers that were heliocentric that became flat earthers, okay? It wasn't the one for me. For me, like I said, it was my number one, which is the Earth is stationary and I don't observe any Coriolis. But this one is, we can see way too far, okay? If the Earth is a ball, the Earth has to be a ball. You can't get away from that. You can question the 8 inches per mile squared. You can say it's a different formula. But as you can see with any ball, it completely drops off as we go. And the further you get, you know, you should not see any horizon rising to eye level. You should see, hey, there is no horizon because it dropped off. But yet we can always see this horizon in the distance. We can always see the water, the mountains. We can always see it. So the very best examples I can show you would be the Bedford experiment. That was, I have the video of that. And then the footage of the oil wells, that's called the Black Swan. With the horizon, I mean, the platforms are far enough away and we can see the entire platforms, but then you can actually see the horizon beyond the platform. And we're told that, I know you're going to say that's refraction and we're supposed to not believe our eyes. I know you're going to say that. Now, here's the thing. That would be a dead ringer if the horizon is actually above and behind the oil wells. And I'm going to share that now real quick here. Yeah, give me a minute. I'm just trying to find the right
that's
one.
fine.
Okay, I'm having trouble because I got too many screens open, Craig. So I'm going to show you this one first. This one is actually even better. This is Jay Tolan. He's an engineer that's on YouTube.
Jay Tolan's not an engineer.
Jay Tolan?
Yeah, he's not an engineer.
Okay, I believe he is, but you're saying he's not.
No.
But let's look at this. Hold on a minute. 310. Okay, he goes on to explain reasonable refraction and that this is not reasonable, but let me skip to minute 6:45 where, let me get there. Okay, this is the dead ringer, Craig. This is unbelievable. I want you to see this.
Okay. I don't think we can hear the audio from him, so if you just tell us what's happening.
Oh, you can't see the audio. Okay.
No, can't hear the audio now.
Okay, I'll tell you. So that's Mount Sentusinjo, he said, over 170 miles away that they can see the bottom and the top of the mountain. They can see Los Angeles here from over 100 miles, and they can see the bottom of the buildings as well, Craig. So I have these other videos on here. That's right, I'm not looking for a rebuttal. Let me finish going through my evidence here and get my stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
I've considered refraction and the mirage thing, and I find that very unconvincing. If you believe it's a ball, there has to be evidence of the horizon dropping off and things being under the curve. So this is a very long distance. I'm going to try to quickly share. Hold on. No, not that one. Okay, here's the one I want to share. Let me see if I can do it. Okay, can you guys see what I'm looking at?
Uh-huh.
The oil well. So it's one thing that we should not be able to see the bottom of these oil rigs. We shouldn't even be able to see them. They should be under the curve. But then you can actually see the horizon up here behind the oil wells, way above the oil wells. Now, if the Earth was a globe, that would be totally dropping off. So I'm showing you videos. I mean, I'm a hiker and a hunter. I have walked with, binoculars, scopes all over the Northwest. I've been at the peaks of all kinds of mountains out here. I have observed for myself, seeing things, mountains like Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, Mount St. Helens that I shouldn't be able to see from as far away as I am. And I can actually see the base of these mountains from different angles. And there's videos like this. The Flat Earth movement has went crazy with videos like this. There's videos like
yeah,
this
they like the black swan because they don't understand what they're seeing.
But it was hundreds of videos before it was the black swan, and my position is you can explain it away with refraction and mirages, but can you really convince us that our eyes aren't seeing what our eyeballs are seeing here? I mean, you should not be able to see this. And I know your position's going to be, when I'm done talking, that horizon that we see way above and behind these oil wells is a mirage or a refraction. But I think we see what we're looking at here, Craig. Go ahead.
Okay, so if you think you see what we're looking at, why isn't it always like that? It changes it changes all the time, so it can't be what is actually there. And to say it's not what we see isn't correct, because we do see that. You know, we do see what we're seeing. It's just we're not seeing the actual thing because there is things in the way. Let's have a look at this.
There's going to be cloudy days. There's going to be rainy days. There's going to be smoggy days. But if we have a clear day, this is what we see.
Well, these two photos, both of the oil rigs, the one on the left was actually taken on a much more clear day than the one on the right. And as you can see, the one on the left shows that the second oil platform's quite clearly hidden behind the horizon. And the horizon is in front of the first one, even, we would say. Yet on the one on the right, it's clearly very different, showing that on different days, you're going to get very different things depending on refractive conditions. And even though you've kind of gone, I know you're going to say refraction, but I don't agree with you, then that would say to me that you haven't really studied what refraction is and what it can do. Because this is exactly the predictions of refraction on a curved Earth. This is 100% what we would expect to see with changing conditions, with changes in air density and changes in air temperature. You can look at the same shore over a 6-hour period and see it rise and fall and rise and fall. Even with J-Tola Media's pictures of 100 plus miles away, that only equates to just over 1.5 to 2 degrees of curve of the Earth, which is something that we predict refraction can do. So I want to show you an example of refraction to demonstrate that our claim is correct. So we are claiming that the Earth is curved, but the changes in conditions can make you see further than the horizon physically is. It will bring up the horizon and show us things behind it. And to demonstrate that, someone actually did an experiment with simple equipment. Now, as you can see here, we've got a can, right? And this can has 3 bits of Play-Doh on it: blue, red, and yellow. Yellow near the bottom, blue near the top. And they have placed this beyond the horizon of the curved surface of that canister you see there. So he sets the camera down, and once he's got it, so you can see there, you can just see the blue. You can just see the top of that, right? We know that it's got the red and the yellow on it because we've seen it, but it's hidden behind the horizon of that gas canister, yeah?
Okay.
Now, what he does is he gets, pretty sure it's liquid butane, which has a standard temperature of about 0 degrees centigrade, which is generally the same as the air that you get over water over long distances. And he pours it onto there, changing the density and the temperature of the air, increasing the refractive conditions. And I want you to pay close attention to what happens to that can with the Play-Doh on. Once the refractive conditions are increased, you can see more. You can see beyond the curve. It brings what is physically hidden by the curve of that canister into view, by allowing you to see further than you're supposed to because of refraction. This is a physical demonstration of our claim of what refraction can do. And that explains why, in this picture on the right, the oil rig appears to have been brought up above the horizon, because the air was cooler and denser, allowing the refractive conditions to be such to give you a positive coefficient and increase the distance that you can see and raise things up. So when it is refraction, this is exactly what refraction says should happen. That is my rebuttal to that.
Yes, and you know what? That certainly accounts for a little bit. But I think with the J. Tolan observations, I've seen this guy looking at stuff from 1,200 miles away. I mean, it's just
specifically the 1,200 mile one. He was caught out lying. It was about 350 miles. He claimed it was a particular lake that he was seeing, and Slice Arcane actually mapped it out using modeling software and showed that it was only a lake about 300 miles away that he was seeing from a distance of about 40,000 feet in the air, which kind of matches again what we expect to see.
Yeah.
Honestly, don't know where you got J. Tolan Media being an engineer from. He's a photographer. That's it.
Well, look, man, that's what I heard him say at one point. So,
right. One other thing. You also brought up the Bedford level experiment, right?
oh yes, yeah,
You know who did that originally? Samuel Rowbotham, right?
I have heard that name. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was the first one to do the Bedford level experiment, I think in the 1800s sometime, because he was what we call the OG flat earther. He was the first one to kind of put up zetic astronomy and, you know, the zetic method of science and stuff, and he was the first kind of, you know, famous flat earther, if you will. And when he did the Bedford level experiment, he had his equipment very, very close to the surface of the water, which, as we have demonstrated, when you're closer to the surface of something that's cooler, you get more refractive conditions. So what happened was someone called Alexander Wallace, about 2 years later, took up the challenge because Rowbotham said, right, if anyone can disprove me, then I'll pay £50, right? So Wallace came along and he was like, right, well, I'm going to actually take controls. So he set up his equipment a bit further away from the water, and along the canal, he placed markers. And he was able to sight these markers being lower the further away it was, matching the predictions of the curved Earth. If he lowered his equipment, just as Samuel Rowbotham did, then it did appear that you could see further. That just shows what we expect, again, of refraction. The closer to the surface of water, the cooler and the denser the air is, the higher the refractive conditions. But yeah, Wallace came along and disproved what Rowbotham had said. Rowbotham refused to pay up and the whole thing went to court and was a big kerfuffle. But
Okay, let me ask you something about that, Craig. Just
yeah,
objectively here. So what you're saying is that refraction is different at different times. So I guess I'm asking if at ideal times you can still see these things that we're not supposed to see. How do you explain that?
What would you consider ideal, though?
Well, yeah. Craig, I just think that we can see a lot of things that we like. It's not even close. It's not like, oh, you know, we can barely see what we're supposed to. We can totally see things we're not supposed to see, like the bottom of mountains when we're supposed to not be able to see.
I would disagree that was the bottom of the mountain in that picture as well. I've seen it overlaid, and there's quite a large portion missing. But again, all the things that we see are the predictions of refraction. If the refractive conditions are correct, if the refractive conditions made the light match the arc of the curve of the Earth, you could literally see forever because it would be the same. But that's what refraction does. Refraction on Earth, especially when it's colder, denser near the surface and the atmosphere is curved because of the Earth, what we see is exactly what we expect to see. I would suggest having a look at the work of Andrew Thomas Young, who is the world's leading expert on refraction, and has got some excellent explanations of how certain things that we see, for instance, a Fata Morgana, would be completely impossible if the Earth was flat, knowing the physics of refraction as we do.
Well, you can't see Europe from America for a reason. I can't see you outside on your deck doing a barbecue because, there's smog and sleet and snow and rain and all that. So obviously you can't see forever, regardless of whether the Earth is flat or a globe. You cannot see forever.
I just want to show you one video that can kind of help with this a little bit.
Now, Craig, you said something about a break. Are we going to take a little bit of a break so I can check on my kids and stuff?
Yeah, if you would like to take a break. Can I just show you this one video and then we will take a break?
Absolutely.
I can read super chats and stuff.
I'm not going to look at the chat. I'm sure I know what they're saying about me.
It's sometimes not a good idea. So this
Love you guys.
This is a guy in Australia called Dazza the cameraman. And he wanted to test the theory of do boats actually go over the horizon? Can you zoom them back in? Now, obviously, if the Earth was flat, then things wouldn't be hidden bottom up on a flat Earth. So what he did is he saw these three boats, one this side of the horizon and two just slightly past the horizon, and he took a screenshot as he was at a certain zoom level. He took this screenshot at a certain zoom level, and then he zoomed in on the video as it was going. Come on, speed up a bit. Right, so yeah, screenshot taken there, and then zooms in and takes another screenshot and shows the two compared. And this shows that between the zoomed out shot and the zoomed in shot, that there's no difference in how much of that boat is hidden by the horizon. So how would this be explained if the Earth was flat, that only the bottom of the boat appears to be hidden?
Yeah, well, I've seen a lot of these type of videos, and the more he zooms in, the more that boat will come right back into the view.
But that's what he just proved, that that's not the case, because he zoomed in and no more of the boat appeared.
Does he zoom in further?
No, that's maximum zoom.
Oh, okay. Well, there's
even between all the way out, there's no difference in the amount of the boat that's hidden. No matter at what distance the zoom was, never did zooming in bring any of that boat back into view. It's always exactly the same.
I could come up with a lot of videos where they pull those boats right back into view over
never
the curve.
Never
it's
from the
just
bottom
a matter
up.
of zoom.
Never ever never from the bottom up. Here's the thing: all the videos that you could show me would show something disappearing in totality due to angular resolution limits. It would never show the bottom disappearing and being zoomed back in, because simply cameras aren't magic and can't do that.
Well, it's not a matter. So cameras have limited capacity, so they can only zoom so far. Like you're saying, he couldn't zoom anymore. If he could continue zooming, that boat would come right back into view, more than likely.
Well, if that was the case, then you would see some difference already between these two shots of zoomed out and zoomed in, and there is no difference. So what you're saying is that no, there's exactly the same amounts there, exactly the same amounts. You can even see like the little dots on the top one where it's just, well, it's the blurred because it's more zoomed out on the bottom one. The exact same amounts are
okay.
visible there.
So the bottom zoom is closer or further away?
The bottom one is further away. So you've got less angular resolution to deal with.
Okay. Yeah.
But exactly the same amounts are available. And no amount of zooming in that he was able to do changed. In fact, it stayed exactly the same from zoomed out to zoomed in. So this disproves the notion that you can zoom things back in. What you can do, if a boat is too small to be able to see by the camera, as you zoom in, it will bring that camera into view because you increase the angular resolution available. But you will never be able to bring something that has disappeared bottom up back. It just cannot happen.
Okay, well, I've seen it happen in a lot of other videos.
I'd love to see one. I really would, because all of the ones I've seen have just been in totality, not from the bottom up, the entire thing appearing as one, which is, again, is what we expect with angular resolution.
How long of a break are we taking? And I'll try to find one for you, and maybe that's what we could start with.
Would 10 minutes be all right for you?
Yes, sir. That'd be great.
All right,
Thank
cool.
you.
All right, I'll read out my super chats, and you go and look after your kids.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, see you in a minute. Oh, wrong one. Hey. Well, this is going quite well, guys. The normal kind of flat earth talking points, really, but at least he is a decent person. We know how these things can go. There's a lot of misinformation that needs to be broken through, because it is all the talking points we've heard, the C2 fire, the black swan, not understanding what Coriolis actually is. Let's have a look at the super chats. Thank you very much, guys. For, as always, the support you give is insane, so thank you. We've got Siggy Sigworld for 500 ARS. This is going to be brutal. Siggy Sigworld 500 ARS. I never understand the whole, I'm not an expert, but I know more than y'all. How stupid do you have to be to not understand? Then that immediately disqualifies you. Study Coriolis, and you would know that you are wrong about Coriolis, basically. Hail Satan for 199. Is this guy Walter Mitty? Subtest, please fight. I'm not going to claim he's faking his military credentials. I don't think that's fair. I get accused of it myself, and it's not very nice. If the guy says he's a submariner, I'm going to take him at his word. I don't like to think that there's people that actually would commit stolen valor in that way. I get accused of it quite regularly by flat earthers, and it's not nice. So I'm not going to say that. The guy's told me he's a submariner, and I'm going to take him at his word. But I understand when we deal with the people that we do, that those questions do arise. But so far, this guy seems all right. I think you'll all agree with me there. Aaron Reese for $2 says, a commercial? Seriously? Ridiculous. Was there an advert? Well, thank you for watching it. Rachel O'Daniels, one of my favourite people, who's been a member for 24 months. That's a whole 2 years, guys. Wow. All praise Craig, the awesome lord of all. I am a science priest. Sir Little Wolf for $5 says, how could you be in the Navy and believe the Earth is flat? Can I be a blue wolf here? FTFE. End of the year will be a mod reset, so we'll see how that goes. Norman Dixon for $10. Greg, I did navigate ships in the Navy. Ships in the open ocean make pre-calculated course changes in the open ocean to follow the curve of the Earth, because the Earth is a globe. Yes, they absolutely do. Jake the Surgeon for $10. Fun fact, most Flerfs don't either understand or refuse to understand. Science has never made more progress when the status quo has been shook. Also, your god and fables are based on older mythologies. Boom. Tim Tully for $10. As an atheist, I'm amazed at the limitation that some people put on their god. A deity as powerful as Claim could have put together the universe that equals that of what science accepts. Yeah, I mean, I don't personally have a belief in God, but I'd rather believe in the actual Christian God than the Christian God that flat earthers pretend to believe in, because that one seems a lot more powerful and he can create an entire massive universe instead of just a tiny little snow globe. Must be God with a small g. Earth is life for $5. How did a flight from Argentina make it to Australia? Traveled just over 9,200 miles in 18 hours. QFA 14. Absolutely. Norman Dixon for $5. Greg, are you a pollywog or a shellback? Is that a Pokemon joke? And all that jazz for £5 says, as the great Aaron Rao would say, this guy got butt kiss. Knights and Castles for $5. Name at least one, or just one thing that Flat Earth model explains while Globe Earth model doesn't. What's the point of Flat Earth model then? Going to get to models in a bit. Mouth Breather for $5. What rate were you, Greg? What sub did you serve on? As a new KT, I'll tell you I have no idea what you're talking about. Again, I'm not going to claim stolen valor. It's not very nice when it gets done to me, and I wouldn't want to do that to somebody else, so I'm going to take him at his word. Tommy Gronville for 20 Nokias. This is a man led by evidence. Bad cop. Marty Mad Scientist for $5 says, Earth isn't a globe because a couple old dead assholes said so. It's physics making it so. Millions of engineers confirm it with their work every day. Yes. STE for £2 says, ask him to jump up and down and fly at 700 miles an hour. Yeah, they don't understand conservation of momentum. They think as soon as someone leaves the surface of the Earth should move away underneath it. Don Giovanni for $2 says, listener here, eyes say Earth's round. Thank you, Don. Appreciate that. Steve6464 for $5 says, the Book of Job is a play about why bad things happen to good people. And if another $5 said, why would that playwright looking into good and bad be trying to describe the shape of the Earth? Then for another 5, he says, looking to Job for the shape of the Earth is like looking to Romeo and Juliet for teen dating advice. Yeah, Romeo and Juliet were fucking dumb, weren't they? Tenix1 for $2 says, Black Swan again. That's been beaten to death. I have enjoyed eating a lot of swan, because I've roasted plenty of it this year. JRock69 for $2.79 says, beaten's a nice tender meal I enjoy every day. Demoser for $5 says, Black Swan isn't actually black. What you're seeing is a regular swan covered in bruises. FTFE has given it. I wouldn't beat up an animal. I'd just kill it and eat it. Maybe if Nathan Thompson did that, he wouldn't be so salty about losing his YouTube, his Instagram, and his Facebook. Although my Facebook is currently under a 7-day zuck. So there's that. JRock 69 for $2.79 Canadian says, FTFE has been known to beat his swan black and blue. Not when there's people looking. Kirk B, who's been a member for 10 months, says, a decent Flerf. Whoa. Yeah, props to the guy. Matthew Hooks for £2 says, the turtle moves. Actually, it's elephants all the way down. And Graham Price has been a member for 19 months, says, all the same old Flerf top 10 hits. Oh, Craig. Lol. Yeah, I could do this in my sleep. Graham Taylor for £2, show him the picture of the bridge and the mountains. Oh, yeah. Don't worry. I'm going to present some of my evidence and we'll get to that. Guys, thank you very much. That's the super chats for now. Greg, are you back? Nope, he's still not back. That's cool. Let's have a look in the chat. So who we got there? We've got Stellarium, Celestia, Mandevil, Adrenochrome Slurper, Custom Winder, Poseidon, Cuboids, Mike 71 and Astro Rex. You don't have to call Stolen Valor. I'll do it. Again, I don't want to accuse people of that. I would like to think that there's nice people in the world. Who knows?
What have I been accused of?
Nothing. Don't worry. It's a standard thing. When anyone says they're in the military, there's always people that go, "Oh, I don't believe him." So I get accused of stolen valor all the time, and I don't like calling out people for it, so I would never do it.
Okay, well, I've comforted my girls from. They're actually reading the comments. I said, "Don't read those."
No, don't. Please,
No!
guys, just look. The fact is that this isn't, this is my channel, and I'm a globe earther. So the majority of the people watching are going to also be globe earthers, which means the majority of the comments aren't going to be that nice towards flat earthers. So
yes,
Greg's
Thank you for saying
children,
that.
I apologize in advance. Please don't read the comments, okay?
You hear him, Mihaela and Reina? Okay, don't read the comments. That's why. And here's the thing: if I was on a flat Earth channel, they would all be talking against the Globers. That's the way it is. So,
but like I was saying,
I decided to put myself in the ring tonight
I
and go
appreciate
right
it.
into the fire.
And like I've said, so many of my debates turn into complete dumpster fires because the people I'm talking to are just human scum. Greg, you presented yourself with respect. I've so far enjoyed this conversation. You seem like a decent person. I can tell you're a caring guy looking after your kids. And this is the kind of conversation that I do prefer. So thank you for actually having a decent conversation with me. Because I know you would have gone and looked at some of my videos and you would have seen how many of them turn into shouting matches.
Yeah. Well, let me also say, Craig, I've had a lot of friends that are, we call them nukes, nuclear engineers in the Navy, and I got a lot of respect for you guys. You're definitely, I'm going to just say this, and all your followers right now are going to celebrate. But look, nuclear engineers are a lot smarter than me when it comes to academia, book smarts. Like, I couldn't hold a candle to you, man. I know that. But
I appreciate that. I think some of that goes
to
to
making like high-level observations. I'm just a regular guy.
And I don't want this to come across as rude, but I think some of it does just come down to your ignorance of physics. And I don't mean ignorance as in a bad way, just as in you don't know the physics behind the Coriolis because you've never studied that. Whereas I've got a physics degree, and I've especially since doing this debate, and it's something I have studied extensively, and I understand the physics and the maths behind it. And maybe if you did, some of the things that you said you wouldn't have. But like I said, I'm going to provide you with some information afterwards.
You know much more about it than I do, but I kind of reject godless atheistic science, and I also reject science in general because I found that there's funding behind it, and if you don't get in line with what they tell you they want to see, your career is over. As a scientist, as a doctor, it doesn't matter. I mean, these guys, they get indoctrinated in school, but when they want to start their career, if they don't say and come up with the right things in their studies, they're gone. I mean,
see, I know a lot of scientists that would disagree. A lot of scientists don't care about what they're told; they just want to study the world. And
I hope so. That gives me hope. And I know you're right, Craig, that there are a lot of them like that. But there's also a lot. There's a huge push to get with the mainstream narrative, or get the hell out. And I've even heard scientists testify that I'm going to wait till I have tenure to say what I really think. They're going to wait until they have tenure because after that, nobody can mess with them, nobody can touch them. But before that, they better get in line. So,
well, I mean, I like to think that peer review helps deal with a lot of that. And peer review isn't just an old boys club. It's people that know what they're talking about looking at the things. But anyway, what do you want to do now? Do you want to present more evidence from your side, or would you like to hear some of my evidence?
I have more, but you know what? I want to take turns, so why don't you go?
Right. Let's start with the Earth's curve, because there's certain things that happen on the Earth that would be impossible if the Earth was flat. Now, one thing we know is that near the surface of the water, there is extreme refractive conditions. The closer to the water, the worse it is. So the best way to get rid of refractive conditions is to move away from the water. Pardon me. Like Wallace did when in his recreation of Bedford experiment, and like my good friend Miles Davis did when he took this photo. Well, it's actually a still frame from from a video. This is taken literally just down the road from me. I live in Fife. This is up a mountain, a big hilltop in Fife that's 210 meters above sea level. And in the video that he shows, there's a surveyor's plaque that shows the height above sea level. So this camera shot, this particular photo was taken exactly 210 meters above sea level. The bridges you see there are the Forth Road and Rail bridges. The tall one with the red line on, the middle pillar, that is the new road bridge, and according to the engineering specifications, that pillar, the tip of it, is exactly 210 meters above sea level. So we know that both the camera and that top of that pillar are 210 meters above sea level. And we know that we are away from the majority of refractive conditions. So we've got a line of sight. We've got a tangent point, right? We've got a line going from the camera that's 210 meters to the top of that pillar that's 210 meters. And we're looking off into the distance. Behind that is looking towards Edinburgh. Those mountains in the distance are just to the west of Edinburgh. And the mountain in particular, just behind that pillar with the red line touching it, is 510 meters above sea level. That presents a massive problem for the flat Earth. Because if the Earth was flat, that mountain would have to appear twice as high as that red line. The only way that you could have the mountain, which is twice as high as your line of sight in this picture, appear below the red line would be as if the part of it was over a curve or the bottom was missing. This is something that could not happen if the Earth was flat. We know how high those mountains are. We know how high that pillar is. We know how high this camera was when it took this picture. If the Earth was flat, there is no reason for those mountains to drop below that red line. Even any kind of perspective or vanishing points that you want to talk about, it would never, ever, ever drop below that red line. If anything, the further you got away, the mountains would shrink into that red line, but never drop below it. Because, as we know, parallel lines do not intersect. This picture, in particular, is completely impossible if the Earth is flat. Do I have the other picture in here, or did I delete it? There's another picture from the same video where he turns 180 degrees and actually has a very similar shot of something in the distance which does the same thing. I don't seem to have saved that. But there is also another picture that I want to show you that's of the similar vein. And it's one. Sorry, carry on.
How far is the camera guy from the bridge?
From the bridge, he is about 4 miles.
Okay, and how far are those mountains beyond the
mountains
bridge?
are about 17 to 18 miles away.
Oh, okay. Okay, they're quite a ways.
Yeah. One sec, let me just get this other picture. Where'd it go? So there was a famous flat earther called Ranty Flat Earth who basically this picture, if I can find it, turned him back. Oh God, I literally had it there and then I've moved it somewhere.
Ranty, I've heard of him.
Yes. He stopped being a flat earther because of, there it is, this picture. And it's the same kind of thing. There's not a lot of water or anything. It's closer to the ground, this one. But still, those mountains in the distance are a lot higher in elevation than the tip of Blackpool Tower, which you see there. The only way that this observation could be taken again is if the bottom of those mountains were hidden by something. It's the same thing. You've got a line of sight to the top of it, but the things behind it should never drop below that line of sight. Yes, they would reduce in angular size and go into it, but they would never ever drop below it. In both these pictures, things that are impossible on the flat Earth is happening.
Okay.
And I'll stick with just that thing for now.
Well, I'll say this, Craig. That's pretty convincing, and that's what I would expect from you. You said you've done 600 of these debates. This is my first. That's pretty convincing evidence. I mean, I look at that and I just think I really need to know more. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is something that you guys reject, and that is that the sun goes around the Earth and it goes far enough away that it actually goes out of sight because of perspective. And that's my best explanation, is those mountains are so much further behind that objects that's closer. So my thought is this. One time, and I knew about this trick, so I did this, you know, shameful, really is. I grew up in the Great Lakes region in Michigan, surrounded by Great Lakes. I went back on a camping trip. I live in Idaho now. I live out in the Northwest. I went back and did a fishing trip with some friends, and I caught this huge salmon. And I very purposely, when they took the picture, the salmon was already big, but I held it out like this. I got about 3 foot because I got long arms. I was with my daughter, and I held that salmon way out in front of us so that it looked bigger. So when they took the photograph, that salmon looked huge in front of me.
Yeah,
it looked way bigger than me.
That's something that we would call forced perspective, and that's taken into account in these pictures, because in the same way that it can make it look bigger because you're closer, it can never make it appear as though it's above or below something that's on the same level when the camera's viewing it. And just with regards to the sun, I made this brief model myself based on known dimensions of the Earth, but made it flat and assumed the sun being 2,000 miles up. And I put 4 cameras on it. You've got one looking at the sun, one looking at above, one from the side, another one just tracking where the camera's going. And as the day goes on and the sun would move across the Earth, there isn't any point where you wouldn't be able to see it due to perspective. It's coming back. I'll just let that play and restart it. So perspective would make things look smaller as they get further away, but it wouldn't make it disappear out of sight over a horizon if the Earth was flat.
Well, that depends on a lot of things, doesn't it?
You would have to have extreme distances, and this is based on real world distances. There would be no I even put a bump map on with mountains. You can just about see the little rises, but you know, it clearly shows that there's no mountains or anything that would be high enough to block the sun. And then to kind of further show this, I did some physical. And
is this all based? Everything you've done here, and this is something you created yourself. So I'm just looking at it. Okay,
it's based purely on perspective. Flat Earth? Yeah, this is based on known distances, but if the Earth was flat, and I used a square map to kind of, you know, but then to kind of to show my point about perspective, I then did this in my kitchen. I got the camera leveled up with the table, and I put these blocks on. The blocks are all the same height, obviously, that, you know, and as they get further back, you can see the blocks appear to get smaller. But no matter how far back they go, they never go above that line, showing that even though they're the same height, they appear smaller, but they would never cross that line of sight. And then I move one backwards and forwards to kind of show it again. As it goes back, it reduces in angular size, but never crosses that point in the middle. And there would never be a point, no matter how far back it went, that it would cross that point in the middle. It would shrink into it, but it would never appear above it. In the same way that the mountains that I showed you in the first picture should never shrink below that line. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I can't lie. I mean, it makes sense.
Excellent. That for me is one of the most simple kind of observation-based evidence that I can ever put out.
Yeah, that's pretty good, Craig. I'm not, I haven't become a globe earther right now, but
It's making you think. That's what I like. And I don't want anyone to think that I just dismiss the ideas that you flat earthers come up with. I know I've had very quick responses to everything that you said today, but again, that's because I've done this 600 times, and everything you said I have already heard hundreds and hundreds of times, so I know the responses.
Which I expected.
Yeah.
I totally expected that.
So I don't want you to think that I'm just dismissing everything you're saying. It's just that I have heard it before, and I've already formulated responses and kind of know the best way to get, to give those answers.
Okay. You okay, buddy? Huh?
Oh, hello. Who we got here?
This is Oreo.
Hello, Oreo.
She's a mini Aussie, actually.
She's gorgeous. Yeah. Oh, I do like her.
Like she's acting like she's hurt, but my favorite dog is the southern one. Hold on, Ruger, come here. Ruger, get over here. He's a husky. Come on, buddy. Get back here where they can see you.
Oh, look at him. Oh my God, look at the size of him. Oh, I love him already.
He's my buddy.
Yeah.
Okay, come on. Get out of here, guys. You're fine. They were acting like something was wrong with them. Yeah, I lived up in Alaska for 5 years, so I lived on the Iditarod Trail where they race huskies, and I was excited when I got an opportunity to own one. He's been my best buddy for the last 6-7 years or so. So
yeah, animals are lovely. I'm a cat person personally. I've got nothing against dogs. I just prefer cats, and how close you get to animals can be incredible. Like, I
got two cats, 2 dogs, and 2 horses.
Oofed, nice.
Yeah, I live in a beautiful northern Idaho now, man. During our break, I went up to the garage, and I observed a bunch of stars with no parallax. It was the weirdest thing, but.
Yeah. So, if your kids are reading the chat at the moment, you'll see that everyone's saying how cute your dogs are.
Oh, good. Okay,
and actually, you know what? Looking at the chat, Greg, they like you compared to a lot of flat earthers. It's Probing Time says, I like this bloke. I like anyone who's a dog lover, and he's got a gorgeous pair there.
Good.
People are saying that you're listening. Maybe salvageable, which is a nice thing. Adorable dogs. Right, Greg, do you want to present your next bit of evidence, maybe, or?
Absolutely. And you tell those listeners, I can bring out the cats if they want. I got 2 beautiful.
You're trying to get them on your side now,
2
yeah?
Beautiful cats. Okay, well, my number 3 evidence was that outer space is completely fake, but I'm going to skip over that for now, Craig. I don't know if we get a chance to come back to that, because this one's more important to me. I think it's more obvious. I really am curious, too, to see your guys' response to this and what you'll have to say.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the eclipse in 2017. I observed this eclipse myself, and it's really interesting. So I have a whiteboard behind me. I don't know how good you guys can see it.
Yeah, I can see it, okay.
Okay, so up here in the corner we have the sun, okay? Then I've drawn in the shadows. Do you see these lines, Craig?
Yep.
Okay, they're really hard to see. This little blue, this is the moon right here, and this is the Earth. Okay, I had to draw it a little bigger because I had to put the United States on here. We got the West Coast on this side. We got the East Coast on this side. Okay, so the first thing that got me is shadows. You can never get a shadow, first of all, that's smaller than the object, okay? So in all the experiments I've seen, you can't get that. So the moon shadow in 2017 on the Earth was 70 miles across. It can be larger than the object, but it can't be smaller. It's very consistent with a flat Earth model. This diagram is basically, I've got a lot of, let me see if I can I don't like the lighting that I've got going on here, and that didn't really help. Did that make it better or worse?
That's made it a bit more glary than it was.
All right, let me. Okay, well, I don't know how good you guys can see this, but the fact of the matter is, with our model, the moon goes much slower than the rotation of the Earth. Okay, the rotation of the Earth is happening much faster. It's spinning eastward, so it's spinning this way. This is the west coast, this is the east coast. The moon shadow should have went from east to west, not from west to east. It actually went the opposite way as it was supposed to go. I don't know how much of that you guys can see with this. But the fact of the matter is you got two big problems. The moon shadow should have been 2,180 miles. I'm going to sit back down because I can't even see that board, so I don't think you guys can. But the moon shadow should have been 2,180 miles, and it was only 70 miles. Very consistent with a flat Earth model. Doesn't make any sense on a globe. Shouldn't have happened. And then the big problem you've got, and I even saw a NASA scientist explaining this before the eclipse happened, the shadow should have been going the other way. It should have been going east to west, not west to east. So that was a big problem with the eclipse. Let me see what else I got here. Okay, that's all I got. What's your response?
Okay, so you absolutely can have shadows smaller than the object. My good friend Mr. Sensible, in response to the same claim that came from, oh God, what's his name? Mr. Thrive and Survive, he said the same thing as you. So Mr. Sensible went out to test that theory. And so here we go. So he's got this bit of paper with a circle underneath it that's the same size, and he's got the sunlight pretty much as directed on it as you can see from the shadow. And what he does is he moves away, and as he moves away, climbs the ladder to try and keep it in. As you can see, as he gets further and further away from it, the shadow becomes smaller than the actual, than the object itself. We know the object is the same size as that circle, but the shadow is now smaller than that circle. He comes back and places it on just to show you that it's the same size. And that's simply because...
That's not a solid shadow, though, Craig. Look at that. That's not solid.
No, of course there's not. There's a penumbra, but the shadow itself is still smaller than the object. It gets smaller the further away that you go. And simply that's because the sun is bigger than the object. If the object casting the light is bigger than the object that has light being cast onto it, the shadow will be smaller, and that's what we expect to see.
Well, from 90, I mean, in your model, you believe it's 93 million miles away. So
which is very far away, yes.
And the sun is almost the exact same size as the moon at that distance.
Angular sizes are almost the same, yes.
What
it shows is that the shadow from the object will be smaller than the object, which means the shadow from the moon.
Okay, but the moon shadow and the eclipse was a very solid shadow, and it was almost a pinprick, like a pinpoint.
It definitely wasn't solid. It definitely had a penumbra and an umbra.
But you're showing something that's a little bit smaller. You should be able to show a pinprick of that, because that's
if he went further and further away, then it would have, as you can see, the further he gets away from it, the smaller it gets. But obviously he's got a limit as to how far he can go in his garden. But you can clearly see the further away he gets, the smaller it is. That object is the exact same size as that circle, but it's casting a shadow that is smaller than the circle. This isn't the only time that I've seen that.
I would be a lot more convinced if you could get that to a pinprick size.
Well, again, that would just depend on distance.
2,180 miles is how big you say the moon is. If you want, it was only a 70-mile shadow, guys. It was only 70 miles in circumference. But you guys can say whatever you want in the comments, but it's like, that's a pinprick. That's way smaller that's what all that you've showed me is a shadow that's a little bit smaller and that's totally broken and fuzzy. It's not a solid shadow either.
But again, the shadow from the moon definitely wasn't a solid shadow. You always get a penumbra and an umbra. But
Okay.
you know, obviously, Mr. Sensible in that video is limited by how much of his garden he's got to move away from. But you can clearly see that as he went further away, it got smaller. So you can assume that if he went even further, it would get smaller and smaller and smaller.
No, I disagree. You can't assume that. He needs to demonstrate it. It needs to be observable.
Why would it stop getting smaller if it's already got smaller with distance? That's what you do. You model things out. You get data and then you extrapolate. So the data shows that when he went from point A to point B, the shadow reduced in size by X%. So we can extrapolate that if he now went from A to C, the shadow would decrease by X plus. You know, it's just you know, there's no reason why the shadow would stop getting smaller the further away he went. If it started to get smaller, then it's going to continue to get smaller.
Well, there's a couple problems. First of all, it wasn't a very solid shadow once it got smaller. Second of all, so you've got a bigger. I didn't see the light source he was using.
The sun.
Okay, but
he's using the sun.
it's okay. But I would need to see him like. And here's my problem with science. Okay, science. They don't want to tell you. So there's a saying that came from the Reagan administration. There's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics, okay? It comes down to what did you use to do your experiment, okay? So I need to see the whole entire thing, you know, because according to the globe model,
I mean,
the
he's got
sun
the whole
is
thing
about
shown
the
there.
same size as the Earth with that distance. So you're going with the same size situation, okay? Regardless, okay, so you've kind of addressed as well as you can, and I get it, you can't address it any better. How do you address the fact that it was going the opposite direction? The shadow was going the opposite direction.
Simply, I don't think it did. I've looked into that claim, and I don't see any evidence that it went a different way than predicted. In fact, I looked at the NASA predictions for the movement of the shadow, and it matched exactly what happened, because you can go to not just NASA, but to timeanddate.com, to eclipsetracker.com, to shadowzone.com, and they've all got, in advance, the path of the shadow that we expect to see. And it did exactly what we predicted. I've seen,
well, let me just
personally,
say,
I've seen no evidence that the shadow went an opposite direction to what we expected. I would have to have a citation for that claim and the predictions that were made in advance, because all the predictions that I've seen matched what we saw in reality.
Okay, so just so you know, they've been predicting eclipses for thousands of years before they had NASA, because they've had sundials and stuff.
I mean, they've roughly been predicting eclipses. What they couldn't do is predict the exact time, the exact location, the exact path of the shadow. What they could absolutely do is say that around about this time, we should probably see an eclipse. But they've never, ever, ever, until the last 80 years, been able to accurately predict the exact time and location of eclipses. Before, they've simply gone, oh, look, it happens this time, and this time. So let's just put on the calendar in advance. It's going to be roughly here, 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 and here. That's just making a prediction based on a cycle. But using the heliocentric model, you can actually predict to the exact millisecond where the eclipse should be. That could not be done before.
Okay. Well, I would sure hope with billions and billions of dollars per year that they could do a little bit better than we could with horse and buggy.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's not just NASA, though. It's
with
like
Copernicum,
all of them.
for instance, with Copernicum. You know, he predicted everything that we see out there in our solar system and outer space when all he had was a horse and buggy and a telescope. It's very impressive.
Yeah. Someone in the chat says that the shadow did go the direction you said, but that was actually the direction predicted. So, yeah, that's what I mean. Every prediction that I've seen of the path of the shadow, be it from NASA, be it from timeanddate.com, I even checked like Russia's predictions and the Chinese predictions, and all the predictions of the path of the eclipse shadow matched the reality that we saw.
Okay, but that doesn't, guys, and you guys in the chat that said that too, I'm going to address you. Like, that doesn't address your model. Okay, NASA knows. Okay, I am not.
What do you mean?
Arguing that NASA knows what's going on. They know what's going on. But if the model that they were selling us was the truth, the shadow would be going the other way.
Why would it be going the other way?
Because the Earth spins eastward. It's so simple, it's stupid.
But
the Earth is
it's
spinning
not just to do with the Earth's rotation. It's also to do with the. Well, let me just respond to that quickly.
My archery buddy, my hunting buddy was a nuke too. Okay, I'm going to tell you something. You can't nuke this one. Okay.
Well, let me. Very good.
I
had to think for a second there. It's not just the rotation of the Earth you have to take into account. It's the orbit of the Moon around the Earth, and it's the orbit of the Sun, the Earth around the Sun. You have to take all these things into account when predicting the path of the shadow. It's not simply just because the direction the Earth is rotating. It's all the other things that are happening at the same time that you have to use to make the prediction. And when you use the actual heliocentric model, including the entire solar system, you actually get the prediction that we saw. It matches the heliocentric model perfectly. Well,
no, I mean, I thought of all these things ahead of time, though. I mean, because I'm a simple man, Craig. I'm not as advanced as you. And sometimes that's helpful when it comes to stuff like this, because I'm looking at it just very simply. Okay, the Earth is spinning eastward. It's way faster than the Moon. The Moon, it takes 27 days to make one rotation around the Earth. So when that Earth is spinning, that shadow is going to go based on where the Earth is spinning. That's the fastest movement as far as your model, which I don't believe, and you have all those movements going on out there in outer space. The Earth is the fastest one. So that shadow, and I've read the things you guys teach. All of the planets and everything you see up there goes east, it spins from east to west. It does not, it should not go from west to east.
But again, when you actually map out the model that we've got based on the angle of the sun, where the moon is, it matches reality. Can you show me that? Well, I'd have to create a simulation on my model. It would take me an hour or so to actually get all the angles and everything set up. So how about you leave that one with me? Wait, hold on. How about you leave that one with me, and I map it out for you according to the heliocentric model so that you can see. It would take me a couple hours to do.
You've had 600 debates. Wait a minute. Time out. You've had 600 debates. It's been since 2017 that this happened, this eclipse. You don't have anything yet?
I don't have that specifically modeled out because I've only ever had one other flat earther bring this up before, and they seem to get it quite quickly. But the best way for me to do would be to model it out. It would take me, like I said, it'd take me a couple of hours.
Hey, I totally agree with you. Now I'm also disappointed in flat earthers. Good grief. This is like the big evidence of flat earth. The eclipse is one of my top evidences because it makes it obvious that this shadow could not go that direction. But
here's the thing.
What? I will take you up on that.
Earth is also orbiting 100%. The sun faster than the Earth is rotating. Like, tangential speed-wise. So you've got to think about...
I'm sorry, what?
The Earth's tangential speed around the sun is faster than the Earth's tangential speed from its orbit around its own axis. So, I mean, you have to take that into account, the angles that's coming from that, the position of the moon. Again, let me model it out for you, and I'll have the camera going from different angles to show everything that's happening. Apparently, Slice Arcane's already modeled it out, so I'll have a look at Slice Arcane's model and see if I can do that to you as well.
I would love to get together again and see that.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely continue this another time. I'd very much like to see you talk to my friend MC Toon.
Who's that?
He's someone who does similar to me. He talks to flat earthers online on his own channel, but he's very religious himself, and he's generally. I'm a dick, all right. That's just kind of who I am. He's nice,
Yeah, we get along.
Yeah. Well, they say dicks get along with dicks, so. Oh, we've been going for about 2 hours now. Do you want to leave it there for today, or?
I can keep going with another, just a short break. You know, I'd love to debate your friend too, because one of the things that interests me is debating other Christians that are Bible believers on this too. So I would probably like to debate him, but if we take a break, I could go another hour or so.
Okay, if you want to take another 10-minute break, I'll read some more super chats, and then I'd like to show you some more evidence of the Earth's rotation.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks,
all right,
guys.
Speak to you in a sec. This one is going well. Oh, Mr. Unite for the Children has just given me something which might help. Oh, why does it do that? All right, we'll watch that together. Thank you, Mr. Unite for the Children. That's something I probably should have in my arsenal, which I don't. So I'm going to read a few more super chats, and then we will have a bit more of a discussion, and then call it a night. Like I said, tomorrow at 6 p.m. I will be releasing my new episode of Flerfs Are Idiots, so you can look forward to that. And then another debate on Saturday. What day is it? It's Wednesday. What day is it today? I'm confused now. It's Wednesday, right? Yeah, so today's Wednesday, video tomorrow for Thursday, then another debate Friday, and then another debate Saturday. God, see what doing this does to me. Let's get to we've got to the super chats. Coordinate Zero for £10 says, atheist here, but Googled some versions of the Bible just now, and some of them translate as circle and some as a globe, but a few say horizon, so no one agrees. Exactly my point. We should not be using the Bible as evidence of the Earth's shape. JRock69 for 279 says, give him another chance, indoctrinated but savable. I agree. Technics1 for $2 says, Greg, what would be the best flat Earth argument? Well, you just heard he thinks the eclipse one is. Ashmaker for $2 says, Greg, please take down the gang sign from the wall. You mean the cross? Yeah, it's very funny. Pivot Croy for €5 says he's not hopeless. I hope he actually reads up on the things discussed today. Good stream so far, FTFE. Thank you very much. JRock69 for 279 says disagree with taking down the gang sign. Then number 279 says ask what his furthest shot was with what cow. Lord Luminous Poo for $5. Tabaxi 30-foot movement, mobile feet, plus 10 blade song, plus 10 Tabraxi racial, haste, dash action, 400 feet per turn. That's 45.45 miles per hour. Usain Bolt's average is 23.45 miles per hour. Okay, trust you. Lord Luminous Poo for $5 says, me, I'm forming a party to avenge my brother's death. Dwarf, you have my axe. Elf, you have my bow. Necromancer, and your brother. Boom. I hope that my D&D game gets going again soon. I know the Dungeon Master had to take a wee break, but hopefully that can get going again soon, because I very much enjoyed doing that. Right, I'm going to get this video downloaded, and we're going to watch this together, because it's probably good for me to learn the actual explanation for this as well. It's not an argument. The eclipse thing, it's an argument I think I've heard one other time, and honestly I've never researched it that much. Modelling it out myself is probably a good idea, but in the meantime we've got this video that we can watch. So let me download this and then we can watch it together. I think you're going to enjoy my new video, guys. Pow's very nasty to me in it. Come on, just getting this downloaded. Here we go. Does anyone else notice the iron? Oh god, I've not put the iron away. My bad. Whoops. Hey FTF, I need to talk to you on Discord later about the D&D thing. Okay, that's fine. Heat shield, no. Whoever said gang signs referring to the USA flag with black and blue on it and no red. Oh, right, okay. I don't know. Are they? I didn't realise there was a gang sign. I'm sorry. Nemesis says I may be able to save this one. I hope so. I do like having a saved flat earther. Maybe just search YouTube for video of moon shadow path. It's alright, I've got one now. We can learn together, guys. That's always good. Just make sure that's working. Yep. Okay. We will watch that video about the eclipse when he comes back, and then I'm going to talk about the Earth's rotation a little bit more. Tommy Gronfeld says at least he doesn't have a purple dildo. Yeah, it worries me that people like Oakley have sex, really. How he bred, I don't know. I'm glad Sleeping Warrior doesn't have children. Beef, B-F-E-F. Beefy? Befif. No, I can't say it. Gave me a £1 with no message. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. John Stelfer says that I've used the iron to kill visiting Flerfs earlier in the day, allegedly. Shh. Be quiet. Must make sure I tidy my house next time. Tiny Captain says, how is the Jake vid coming along? That is the video that will be out tomorrow. And if I do say so myself, it's my best work ever. That's why it's taken so long. Lord of Luminous Pooh, $5 says, Rincewind running into a wall after me. That was funny. Chrismer is going to hit you up. Mike71 for $5 says, are you going to debate on the newest cartoon channel? I'm sure I will. I'll be designing the intro for that as well. Greg, are you back? There we go.
All right.
Okay. While you were away, my subs actually sent me a video that I thought we could watch together that explains the moon path. Because, like I said, it's not something that I have particularly looked into that much.
Okay.
So let's watch this video together. I've sped it up a bit, so...
Even an amateur astronomer would be able to tell you that the sun and the moon both appear to rise in the east and set in the west. So why does the path of a solar eclipse travel from west to east? The answer lies in the way that the moon orbits the Earth. If you were positioned in space above the Earth's North Pole, you would notice that the moon travels around the Earth counterclockwise. That is the same direction that the Earth is spinning, and the same direction that the Earth travels around the sun. However, the moon takes much longer to complete one orbit around the Earth, about 27 days, than it takes for the Earth to complete one rotation, only 24 hours. Although the moon is traveling much faster than the Earth is spinning, more than twice as fast in fact, it has much farther to go. Because the Earth completes a rotation so much faster than the moon completes an orbit, the moon appears to travel from east to west across the sky, just like the sun and the stars. If the Earth were standing still, the moon would appear to rise in the west and set in the east, but very, very slowly. It would take the moon almost 14 days to cross the sky, then vanish for about 14 days before rising again. Let's illustrate why the moon appears to move from east to west with a familiar example. If you are on a train and pass by some people walking in the same direction, they appear to move backwards compared to you, even though they are traveling in the same direction you are. A solar eclipse is caused by an alignment of the sun, moon, and Earth that causes the shadow of the moon to fall on the Earth. To cause an eclipse, the moon must be in precisely the right position, but the moon is moving fast. It is traveling at a speed of over 2,200 miles or 3,600 kilometers per hour. The Earth is only about 7,900 miles or 12,000 kilometers wide, which is a distance the moon can cover in about 3 hours. Since the Earth is spinning at only 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers per hour, the moon's shadow will zip across the Earth before the Earth can spin very far. In other words, the moon only has to cross a tiny piece of the sky for its shadow to move all the way across the Earth, from west to east, the real direction the moon is always moving.
Oh, okay, that explains that better than I could have, I think. So basically it's because the moon is moving faster than the Earth is rotating.
But that's not the case.
But it is. Because you've got to think about the actual speed that it's moving.
The moon is rotating around the Earth much slower than the Earth is spinning. That's
yeah, but the
obvious in
actual
fact
tangential
that
speed of the moon is a lot faster.
Has to go 20. Can I just finish what I'm saying?
Sorry.
Okay, the moon going around the Earth takes 27 days. The Earth rotates in 1 day. That's it.
Yeah, but because the the moon is actually moving at the speed it is and the Earth is also going faster, it makes it appear as though the moon, from the point of view that you are, is going the opposite way. Like that person said, if you're on a train looking at people that are walking the same direction as you, but you're going faster than them, to you it appears that they're going backwards, even though they're not. So it's only because of the speed of the Earth's rotation being greater than that of the moon that it makes it appear that the moon's shadow goes the opposite way that it should, even though it's orbiting the same way as us.
Well, my archery hunting buddy was a nuke in Navy submarines, just like yourself, Craig. He thought I was nuts when I came up with this flat Earth stuff. I'm having a little bit of deja vu, because me and him, we had the same discussion at hunting camp, and I don't see it your way. But it's kind of cool.
I'll send you that video and maybe you can watch it again in your own time. I thought that explained it quite well. But okay, right. So I wanted to talk a bit more about the Earth's rotation, because frankly it's dead easy to measure the Earth's rotation. Like really, really quite easy. This dude is called the Gentleman Physicist, and he measured the Earth's rotation with a bit of fishing wire and a big lump of clay. Big pendulum, basically. Now, if the Earth is rotating, like we say it is, then that means there will be forces imparted onto it, and the Coriolis force being one of those. And if there's a pendulum swinging from a fixed pivot point, the Coriolis force means that the Earth will rotate independently than the swinging, freely moving, backwards and forwards bob of the pendulum. And if that's happening, because the pendulum is freely moving, it will have Coriolis forces imparted on it that will make that straight line back and forward path diverge from being straight back and forward. It will drift clockwise or counterclockwise. And that's what he tested. So in his local high-rise building, he built a really, really, really big pendulum, and he set it off swinging. As you can see, it's swinging backwards and forwards. As it goes backwards and forwards, it passes through this little ink pad. Now, he let it swing for, I think, as long as they could. It ended up being about 3/4 of an hour. And in that amount of time that it swung, they noticed that it didn't stay straight. Over the 0.65 of an hour, whatever it was, it drifted clockwise. And they could actually measure the amount that it drifted. They just look at the angle. If the Earth is rotating, then in the northern hemisphere, a pendulum like this should rotate clockwise, which it did. The clockwise turn means we're in the northern hemisphere. So that's the first thing that matches the prediction of a rotating Earth. If the Earth is rotating, in the north, a pendulum will drift clockwise. The next thing they do is they measure the angle. And what did they measure? They measured the angle 7.89 degrees over 6.88 hours. So, roughly 3/4 of an hour. So next thing you do is a simple bit of math to figure out the period of rotation. So T, which is the period of rotation, equals 0.688 hours times 360 degrees over the 7.88 degrees that they got. And that means that they calculated that in 31.4 hours, it would do a complete 360 degrees. Next thing they do is they can use that information to actually calculate their latitude on the planet. If the Earth is rotating at each latitude, a different amount of force will be imparted onto the pendulum due to the Coriolis. Because as we explained earlier, it's moving faster at the equator than it is at the pole, so different amount of forces depending on your latitude. So you can actually take the amount that it's drifted and calculate your latitude. To get your latitude, you just do arc sine times 24 hours divided by the period of rotation, which is 31.4 hours, and you will get the latitude that you have on Earth. And they did that. And they got a latitude, they calculated based on their experiment that their latitude on Earth would be 49.8 degrees. What was his actual latitude? Well, it was pretty damn close, 48.4, so an error of 1.4 degrees, which is pretty damn good considering the nature of the equipment. The interesting thing is that this can be done anywhere on the Earth, by anybody. And wherever you are on the Earth, the drift that you get during the period of rotation, in this case the 7.9 degrees, will correlate to your latitude on the Earth. There is only one way that the amount that a pendulum that is swinging will drift off a straight line path can correlate to your position on the Earth, is if there are forces being imparted onto it by a rotating body. This is what we expect to happen. This cannot happen for no reason, and if the Earth is stationary, then this is happening for no reason. This is a direct empirical measurement of the rotation of the Earth. Over to you.
Okay. I have no idea what you just said.
Basically, a swinging pendulum will be affected by the Coriolis force, and that is a demonstration of the Coriolis force affecting that pendulum, matching the predictions of the Earth. It's based on an experiment called Foucault's pendulum by a French physicist in the 1800s called Léon Foucault, who first suggested this as a method to directly measure the rotation of the Earth. And the pendulum that he created is still hangs up in somewhere in France, I think. But again, this is a direct empirical measurement matching predictions that shows that the Earth is rotating.
Okay. Now I can kind of address what you said. I didn't follow you at all, and you know, for everyone watching, I've already acknowledged that Craig is smarter than me. I'm not gonna
well, you know,
argue that. Like he was a nuke and I was a cook on the submarine. Just so you guys know.
Hey, right? Like, excuse me, but you were one of the people that we would never piss off on board. All right.
That's right.
on board a submarine or on board any kind of ship in the Navy, there's two people you do not piss off. That is the engineers and the cooks. Because you will either end up with no food or a waste pipe going past your bunk.
I can now see that the UK Navy submarines are very similar to the United States Navy submarines because, we used to joke about that because, you know, when it comes to morale of the crew, you know, the morale has very little to do with all this other stuff and a lot to do with whether or not you have a chocolate chip cookie at midnight. I was the night baker. Okay, so my job, I baked pies and cookies and cinnamon rolls and donuts all night, and I made mid-rats and breakfast for just about 4 years in the Navy. So, morale is a really big deal. So
yeah, of course it was. So anyway, that is a direct empirical measurement of the rotation of the Earth. And the important thing about it is that it matches the predictions. We have to say, you know, if the Earth is rotating, then this is something that should happen. You know, if the Earth is a sphere, we should have a horizon. If the Earth is rotating, there should be certain forces imparted onto it. And that's what we get. It matches the prediction of a rotating Earth.
Okay, and I really can't speak to that a whole lot. That stuff's totally over my head. So you got me there.
It's something you could maybe do on your own as an experiment. Maybe the best way to understand things is to do them yourself. I'll also send you the video. I mean, the whole video is a lot longer than I've shown you, and he does explain it in a bit more detail. So anything that we've talked about tonight, I will send you as well to have a look at in your own time. But now, here's the thing about the rotation of the Earth. Whether the Bible says it's immovable, whether we feel the spin of the Earth, these things are all relevant because we can measure the fact that the Earth is rotating. We can measure it with a pendulum. We can measure it with a mechanical gyroscope. We can measure it with a fiber optic gyroscope. We can measure it with superfluid phase coherence. If we can measure it, then it has to be rotating.
Okay. Can I say something about that?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. The reason I even am on this debate with you is because I was on a Facebook group with a whole lot of globalists, and my post that really triggered some people was hey, give me your very best evidence of globe Earth. I put it out there to hundreds and thousands of people on these two different Facebook groups. And, you know, the best thing I got, Craig, was a gyroscope and a fulcrum pendulum.
Foucault's pendulum,
These are gadgets, okay?
I mean, that's not a gadget that I've just shown you. That's just a pendulum.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm coming from a different perspective from you guys. I've seen how like carbon dating with another gadget has been completely disproven. I mean,
It's really not.
They've sent different fossils to different universities and got completely different dates. I mean, carbon dating has been disproven. It's kind of like in Egypt when the Pharaoh, okay, when God was putting the plagues onto the Pharaoh, and Moses stood before the Pharaoh, okay, and he had that, he had the staff that turned into snakes, okay. Then the magicians that worked for Pharaoh came up with, okay, I can show you how the Nile turned into blood. I'll mix up colored water in a bowl and it turns red. And that's the same thing. No, the entire Nile River turned into blood. Your magicians don't matter. I mean, that's kind of like the same thing. I mean, you're looking at...
Okay, but the thing is, all they are measuring devices. They're not gadgets. They're things designed specifically to do a job. Like, you know, if you want to measure something, you would maybe use a ruler for measuring the length of a bit of paper. If you want to measure rotation of something, you need something that can detect rotation. So, I mean, they're not just gadgets. They're tools designed to do a specific job.
But look at our background, for instance. Okay, Craig, you look at the background. You've got the sun.
Yeah,
with all the planets going around it. In
reality, you like that?
The
it's groovy,
sun
isn't it?
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Now, the sun is also shooting. How fast is the sun actually traveling?
Pretty fast.
667,000 kilometers around in the Milky Way. So this isn't really accurate because the sun should be shooting like a rocket, and those planets should be chasing.
Well, no,
the
it's
sun.
not accurate. I designed it just to look cool.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, the planets don't chase the sun. The planets move with the sun. The planets and the entire solar system are all orbiting the center of the galaxy as one. Nothing's chasing anything. The entire solar system is one gravitational body that is orbiting the center of the galaxy, along with all the local stars around us.
But you don't dispute that the sun is supposedly shooting 667,000 kilometers per hour.
The sun is spinning, where it do one rotation approximately every 200 million years.
The sun spinning. I'm not talking about the sun spinning. I'm talking about.
But that's the important thing, right? That it's rotational velocity that imparts forces, not tangential velocity.
But the sun is going 667,000 kilometers per hour, correct?
Which isn't that fast in universal terms, but the planets are all moving with the sun because it's all one gravitational body.
Mm-hmm.
I
don't know if I'm talking out of bounds here, but I kind of, on the same subject, I want to bring something up. Okay. Okay. You have the Earth turning 1,000 miles an hour. You have the Earth going around the sun 66,000 miles per hour. You have the sun going in a different direction, 667,000 kilometers. And then you have the Milky Way going 2.2 million miles per hour in a different direction. Okay. And then it took I don't know how many hundreds of years for us to observe any parallax. But let me just explain this for all the listeners, okay? Everybody that's listening probably understands a merry-go-round. When we were kids, especially in the 80s, we had extremely unsafe merry-go-rounds. Okay, one kid, usually it's like a bully type of kid, is pushing the merry-go-round, and you got a few other kids holding on to the merry-go-round. And what you see, if you're the one of the kids with white knuckles holding on to that merry-go-round, it's going around, and you're looking outside, and you can see the trees and stuff out there, you're seeing different trees cross each other. Okay, the closer ones are going past the further away ones. Okay, it's very obvious, it's very distinct, it's not hard to observe.
Yes,
and
parallax,
here's what we understand from NASA and the priests of science is that, we could not observe parallax at first, but after getting special telescopes and after decades and decades, we finally observed a little bit of parallax.
I mean, that's not true.
So that proves our model. That's BS. I mean,
stellar parallax has been shown since the 1600s.
Wait, let me finish real quick, and then I'll let you go. If this model was as you say, and there was all these movements, parallax would be obvious. There would be stars moving past each other all the time. Yet what we see for the most part is stars in the same, very exact same position, decades after decades, centuries after centuries.
Right,
they
so,
might move a little bit. They don't move a lot.
First off, stellar parallax has been observed since, like, I think the 1600s.
No.
Yeah,
absolutely not. I'm calling you out on that.
No,
it was
100%.
18 something before they observed any, and then it was pathetically small.
I'm gonna get the date.
I want to say like halfway through the 18th century.
No, you're right. 1838 was the first time that they, using the heliometer. Sorry, so 1838 was the first time that they directly observed stellar parallax. However, it's the amount that we expect to see, which is my point. We shouldn't be seeing the stars all crisscrossing and everything, because all the stars that we see are rotating around the center of the galaxy with us. They're moving the same rotational velocity that we are. And all the stars that we see in the night sky with our eyes are relatively close to us. So the parallax that we see, the very little parallax that we see, is the parallax that we expect to see, because the stars are also moving with us around the center of the galaxy. They're not moving in different directions, they're moving with us.
Well, yeah, but Craig, we've got the Earth is spinning around. We're going around the sun. The sun is shooting around the galaxy. That's three different directions right there. That's three different directions right there. And you're saying that
but why should the stars be
in the same place every night? Listen, the stars.
But the stars aren't in the same place every night. The stars change throughout the year.
With a flat Earth model.
There isn't a flat Earth model.
Wait. Can I finish what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just let me finish. The stars being in the relative same position every single night for hundreds of years that's very consistent with our model. That's very inconsistent with your model, Craig, whether you like to admit it or not. There's all kinds of different movements going on. We should see all kinds of different crap going on every night. Yet, Craig, when I have a bonfire out in my yard, let me respond. Way up here, high in the Idaho mountains every night.
Okay, Greg, let me respond.
The stars are the same every night. So.
Well, Greg, let me respond. Again, the stars are moving with us. All of the stars that are moving, that we see in the sky, are moving around the center of the galaxy with us. The stars in the sky do, however, change position quite easily to observe. That's why sailors have had to put the changing positions of stars in nautical almanacs over the years so that they can chart the change in position of stars. But what we see exactly matches the heliocentric position, 100%. That is what we are supposed to see, because all of the stars are moving around the center of the galaxy with us. It's as simple as that.
Okay. That's fine that you said that and that you believe that. That's great.
It's not what come on. No, Greg, don't do that. Don't do that. It's not what I believe. That is what the heliocentric model says should be happening. Based on the heliocentric model, the position of all the movements that are happening, we see what we are supposed to see, because all of the stars that we see are orbiting the center of the galaxy with us. So that is what we expect to see.
Okay.
That's just how it is.
I just agree to disagree on this one, Craig.
I mean, it's not really something you can agree to disagree with. You're currently strawmanning the heliocentric model. The heliocentric model matches what we see. That is what we can predict the star positions to be. You can use Stellarium or Solar System Scope or any of these programs that use the heliocentric model as a base to see what the position of the stars should be. and it matches what we should see. The fact that we can see different stars from 6 months, to the next 6 months shows that we're changing relative positions in space and looking in different ways. And the fact that the stars' positions have changed so much that we recently had to update the nonsense astrology stuff, right? The position of the stars does change, and it changes exactly how much we expect it to. And it's not just a belief, that's what our model says.
Well, so one of the most important things, though, that I did want to try to get across today, that whether you like to admit it or not, and I'm a Christian, so obviously my beliefs are based on faith, okay? But what I see a lot of the time is with you guys that believe evolution, that believe climate change, that believe globe Earth nonsense.
Climate change definitely.
You will not admit that a lot of your stuff is based on faith. Actually, you need a lot more faith than me and some. But let's just
it's just not true, though. It's just not true.
Wait, you're interrupting me.
I know, but I can't have you just kind of strawman me.
No. Let me just say this, and you can respond to it, but let me speak first.
Okay.
You guys do need an equal amount of faith as what I do at the very least. I think you need more faith than me, but you need at least as much faith.
Look, all right, let me respond.
Wait, no. Wait, let me finish, Craig. Okay,
I just wanted to respond to that point. I just want to respond to that point.
Wait, that's fine. You go on after I'm done talking, but let me just finish what I'm saying. Okay? I can claim the facts are on my side just as much as you can, whether you like it or not. Okay? You need faith just as much as I do to believe what you believe. And I know that bugs you guys. That drives you nuts. There's Globers right now watching this scream, and they just can't wait to make an evil comment.
Greg, let me stop you there. It's simply not true. I don't require faith. I don't require faith. No, I don't require faith because I have empirical. No, I don't require faith because I have.
Brother.
Greg, I don't require faith because I have empirical evidence. Empirical evidence does not need faith. That's the opposite of what faith requires. I don't need faith. I have evidence and logic. Evidence that matches the heliocentric model. Evidence that matches all the predictions we say. Nothing that I say ever requires faith. Everything I say can be backed up with physical evidence and experimentation. Therefore, it does not require faith, and I will not allow you to strawman me by telling me that I require faith when I don't, because I base my position on evidence.
Okay, and Craig, our side can say that just as well.
No, you can't because you don't have any evidence.
Oh, we have lots of evidence
like
that
what?
I've produced.
But none of the evidence. All of the evidence you brought up has been simple.
Debate,
Greg, here's the thing. All of the evidence you brought up is simple misunderstandings of physics. None of it was evidence for a flat Earth. All of it was attacks on the globe and what we would basically call a straw man arguments, because none of it was actually attacking the actual argument. Like, you misunderstood what Coriolis was. You kind of dismissed what refraction can do. You strawmanned the globe to say that that's evidence of flat Earth when it isn't. It's just misunderstandings of physics. And I'm not saying this to be rude to you, but ignorance of physics is not an argument that the Earth is flat. So the facts aren't on your side because the facts literally disagree with you. When you look at the facts according to physics, according to maths and reality, the facts are not on your side. So you can't claim that.
Okay, so, well, that's very interesting and I know that's kind of a trigger point for you guys, that you don't believe you need any faith to believe what you believe, but you really do, guys.
I believe beliefs are relevant for me, 100% irrelevant. I do not base anything I do on belief. I base everything I do on logic and evidence.
And I would submit to you, Craig, that you believe in the priests of science, but I believe
there's no such thing as the priest of science.
There's a complete difference. It's funny to watch you guys get triggered over this because...
it's just you're strawmanning me by saying things that aren't true. Greg, you're strawmanning me by saying things that aren't true. I don't have a belief. I have evidence. I don't have a religion. I don't believe. I think faith is dumb.
Well, you have evidence that supports your beliefs, right?
No, I have
And so
evidence
do
that
I.
supports my logical position. I don't. People don't like it when I say this, but I don't have beliefs. In so
Okay,
much
well,
in so much as
let me-
I don't have
let me say
faith
this.
without
Okay,
evidence.
You're claiming that you're a non-emotional being. You do not have any beliefs whatsoever. I don't buy it. That's fine. I will let you take that position, but let me say this. I just challenge your friend that's a Christian that says that they have the same beliefs as you, but they believe in the Bible. I would love to have a debate with them. I've
Yeah,
really
I will
enjoyed
absolutely
this
set
debate.
that up because most Christians say the Earth is a globe. So
Yeah, they do. You're right. And most Christians are full of nonsense in a lot of other ways. But I've really enjoyed this debate with
me too,
another
Greg.
submariner.
I have. Thank you very much
Yeah.
again for being decent. What I'm going to do,
Yeah.
Greg, is I'm going to let you have a couple of minutes to any final thoughts. And I am going to work on getting a debate arranged between you and MC Toon that I can maybe moderate because I think that would be excellent.
Awesome. What's his name? MC2?
MC Toon, yeah. I'll set up a joint group chat with us on Facebook.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me finish up just by saying, I kind of did this debate in honor of Rob Skiba. I just want to give him an honorable mention. He really influenced me early on in this subject. I know a lot of you on here probably hate the guy, but I really love the guy. And this summer we lost him to the bioweapon, and I won't say any more about that other than it was sad. And I see why they want to get rid of him, but he was just an amazing person. And to his family, I'm praying for you guys. I love you guys. I love Rob, and I miss him. And I hope all of you heard me. What I said earlier. Give Christ, Yeshua, Jesus a chance, because the reality is that the truth does point to Jesus. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And there's the gods of science, and you can look back into the Old Testament where Ezekiel proved the gods of science wrong when he went up against the priests of Baal. It's no different today. And I just want to promote my business again, just to say, those of you out there that are flat earthers, look, guys, we got to stick together. We got to work together. If you want my free financial report, I do want to help like-minded people reach financial success. And my email is gnggtnt@gmail.com. That's George November George Tom November Tom @gmail. I'll send you my free financial report so you can decide if that's something that makes sense to you. I want to help other like-minded people be ready for what's coming. We're living in very volatile times. We're living in times where science is the new false religion of the world. Okay, so that's all I got, Craig. I thank you for bringing me on tonight. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too, Greg. Even though I disagree with pretty much everything you say, at least you and I have been able to have a decent discourse, which I do appreciate. My final thoughts, for you are: don't put too much stock in the people that claim to be flat earthers online. The majority of them are not. The majority of the big ones are not. They want your money, and that's all there is to it. Look into the science. Even if you don't have faith in science, try to understand the position that science is putting out in regards to physics. Study a little bit more about the physics, especially with regards to the rotation that I was talking about, and it might help you understand it from the other point of view. I very much appreciate you taking the time. I know you're working from home trying to set up a business, so I do appreciate it. If anyone is interested in what Greg was saying about his business, I've put a link to it in the description. Feel free to contact Greg if you are interested in the financial services that he was talking about. Like I said, Greg, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. I will get a debate between you and MC Toon arranged. I think that could be an extremely, extremely good debate.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. And I'm going to end the Zoom call there for now and finish up the show. So
All right.
thank you very much. And say hi to your kids. I hope they enjoyed the show.
Thanks, Craig. It's been great.
Catch you there.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Have a
Greg.
good
Bye-bye.
one.
So, number 1 for savable, number 2 for too indoctrinated. Let's get the opinion in the chat, see what we say. 1 for he can be saved, 2 for slightly too indoctrinated. And I don't know about you, but I'm extremely excited to see him debate MC Toon. I thought the guy was decent. I thought Greg was pleasant to talk to. Not too much kind of over talking. It was Flerf 101 at the end of the day, though, right? It's every argument that we've heard 1,000 times before, stemming from their Dunning-Krugering physics, right? So I enjoyed myself, and I hope you all did. Let's see what the chat is saying. Looks like a pretty even split of 1 and 2s. Maybe a few more 2s. Some of you think he can be saved. Some not so sure. I think maybe a chat with Toon and a chat with Ranty might be a good idea. What do you guys reckon? That could be interesting. But anyway, let's read the rest of the super chats. JRock69 for 279 says, I may say dumb stuff, but you and Toon can save him. I think so. Norman Dixon, $5 retracted the message. Thank you, Norman. I do appreciate it. Gary Little, $5 best evidence. At sunset, the shadow of the Earth is convex. On flat Earth, it would be concave. Boom. Crimson Fang's been a member for 2 months. The whole debate can be summed up with Mr. Navy Cook rejects reality because he worships an unprovable book from 2,000 years ago. More than 2,000, mate. Most of it was written about 4,000 years ago. Pivot Croy, €5. I retract my previous statement. He does not seem savable. And then William Foley for $5 says he may have been pleasant, but he's a complete nutter. Also disparages science while using technology based on science. Yeah, that always gets me. Norman Dixon, $10. As a professional engineer, Greg has a huge belief in science. He just doesn't know it because he trusts engineers who use science every day to design the world he lives in. Correct. Mark Beiser, who's been a member for 22 months, says basic Flerf is basic. Absolutely. Now, I just want to say a massive thank you. So many super chats. It's probably one of the largest super chat nights I've had. So thank you very much for the support financially. You know, it's substantial and it allows me to do what I love to do, and also allows me to take the time off when I need to take it off, because I am in constant agony, you know, at every second of my life, and sometimes it's too much and I need to take time off. And because you guys support me, it gives me the peace of mind to be like, you know what, if I need to take a few days off and if I need to take a week off to get over the shit that I'm going through, then thanks to the support that you guys give me, I can do that. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you. It means the world. If you're not able to support me financially, the best way you can help the channel is to share what I do on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, Bebo, anywhere that Nathan Thompson's been kicked off of, really, would be fantastic. Not Today Suicide for $2 says he's a cult member. Well, Flat Earth is a cult, that's for sure. Now, I had a poll that I put up at the beginning. Poll was simple. Is God real or not real? We've had 1,009 votes, which is amazing. Means there's been over 1,000 of you here. 22% of you say real. 78% say not real. 78% of you think the same that I do. That's going to be it for tonight, guys. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. UK time, my new video will be out. I genuinely think this is the best video that I have ever made, and I am extremely excited for you guys to see it. So please be present at the premiere tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time. And I'll be back on Friday with another debate against a very, very angry man, which will probably be a dumpster fire. Yeah, everyone, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's been an amazing stream. I'll see you soon. Remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat. 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 Fight. Come on, everyone, sing. Fight the flat. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat. Fight the flat. Fight the flat. Fight. Good night, all. I love you all.